What's a man of the Night's Watch doing in a wildling camp?
I was sent to discuss terms with the king beyond the wall.
You're speaking to the one true king, boy. You will address him as your grace.
I know he's the king. My father died for him. My name is Jon Snow, your grace. I'm Ned Stark's son.
Your father was an honorable man.
He was, your grace.
What do you think he'd have done with him?
I was this man's prisoner once. He could have tortured me, he could have killed me. But he spared my life. I think my father would have taken him prisoner. Listen to what he had to say.
Very well then. Take him.
Your grace, if my father had seen the things that I've seen, he'd also tell you to burn the dead before nightfall. All of them.
Seven blessings, big bitches, skeleton assailants, and dead whores. And welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, the Box Slayer.
And I'm Lady Rachel of House Fox, the Khaleesi of clean air, finally.
And this is episode 82.
On this episode of our series Rewatch, we are covering Game of Thrones, Season 4, Episode 10, The Children.
Yes, the Season 4 finale, and it does not disappoint. In case you're not already aware, this series rewatch is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen up through Season 7. If not, don't worry, there's still time to get crossbowed in your privy by a disgruntled dwarf falsely accused of murder, but who actually did just murder his former whore lover, who you'd been banging in secret, you sick bastard. So you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. All right, let's jump right into it. How about your number 5, Lady Rachel?
My number 5, I kind of discovered a theme through this episode, and it related to the title of the episode. So my number 5 is labeled The Children.
Nice.
And I'm going to keep it a pretty short number 5 because I know we're going to go into all of these scenes, but I realize that there are lots of child and children nuances in this episode. So we start off up at the wall, and Jon tells Stannis that he's Ned Stark's son. And
true.
Stannis kind of immediately is like, oh, you know, your father was an honorable man. So he's revealing that he's Ned Stark's son. We see Cersei talk about her children very passionately when she's talking to Tywin about marrying Sir Loras. We see Tywin talking about his children and also discovering their dirty secret, or finally
acknowledging it.
Like
being forced to acknowledge it.
Yes, exactly. Then we go over across the narrow sea to a former slave missing the children that he teaches. We see a man who lost his child to the dragons.
Oh, heart-wrenching as always.
Yeah, oh my god, I had like tears running down my face.
One of the most powerful scenes of the whole series, in my opinion.
And he's like adjusting her little skull head, and it I usually don't watch that scene, but I did it for the rewatch, and I like seriously had tears running down my face.
Yeah, every time.
We also see Dany enslave her dragons, which we know are her children.
Right.
We meet the actual children of the forest.
Oh, right. The children.
The actual children, yep. And then Brienne finds one of Catelyn Stark's girls.
Mm-hmm. And she was talking about her dad, too, which makes her like a child.
Exactly. Yep. So she's talking about being a daughter. And then Tywin's son, Tyrion, kills him in this episode.
Those children.
Those children. So honestly, that's my number 5. But I just thought like every kind of scene that we touched upon really does touch upon the notion of children.
Perfect. I hadn't picked up on pretty much any of that, so you nailed that, and that makes sense why this episode has that title. It just fits perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean, I've watched this series so many times, but it wasn't until this time that I kind of noted. I always thought it was called The Children because we meet the children of the forest,
right,
which, you know, we've heard about in previous episodes. And, you know, Bran finally gets to the three-eye raven. So I always assumed that that's why it was called The Children. But it was where was it? Oh, when Dany was putting her dragons in the catacombs, that it
all snapped together for you?
That it all like snapped together for me. And then the rest of the episode, I'm like, holy shit, there's children everywhere.
Oh, that's another sad scene too, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
It makes me think of like, you know, one person screws up and everybody else gets punished. Like Drogon goes off and roasts one kid, and that all the other fucking dragons are getting chained up now. Remember season 1? Lady's a good dog. Lady didn't hurt anybody.
Oh, I know.
You know? That's what I was. Rhaegal's a good dragon.
I almost stopped watching Game of Thrones after that episode. I turned to my husband and I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I don't, like, what are you making me watch?
Yeah, when Ned kills her. Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not watching this anymore. And he's like, can you please just watch the next episode? I promise you, no dogs die.
Yeah. Man, that's one of the roughest moments of the whole series, too. God damn.
Did you know that Sophie Turner actually owns the dog that played Lady?
Ha! I did not. That's great. That's cool.
She connected with her so much on set that she asked if she could adopt her.
Nice.
And they allowed her to.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, so that was my number 5.
Perfect way to start our episode. Summing up everything, setting the stage for everything else that's going to come. Yeah, just a good overview of what the episode is. Yeah, I like that a lot. Great job.
Awesome. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Stannis Ex Machina.
Okay.
Like Deus Ex Machina from the Roman plays, meaning God from the machine. When something bad is about to happen and then they raise somebody down from a crane to save the day out of nowhere, basically. That's what happened here with Stannis.
Yes.
Mance tells Jon that he sent all these men up on the wall and everything, and that the Night's Watch is just going to be pounded into oblivion, basically, and Jon is like, oh, fuck, we're screwed. And then, out of nowhere, riders! And there's that beautiful shot from above of the pincer attack pattern with all these riders coming in from the east and from the west and just thrashing through the woods. And then there's that really cool moment where they connect in the middle and the riders are just like going right through each other.
They're like threading the needle.
Yeah. And I'm also kind of sick, so if my voice sounds fucked up, sorry about that.
You actually sound fine when you're talking. I know you're not feeling good, though.
Yesterday, my voice was like super down low. I was like, oh man, this is going to be a fun episode.
You were Sloth Duncan?
Yeah. Sloth Duncan, yeah. I like that DMV sloth in Zootopia. Is that what that is?
Yeah, yes.
That's the best.
So
That's
true.
the real sloth, the DMV people.
Yes.
So yeah, all of a sudden there's riders and Mance is like, are you attacking us? And Jon has a knife to his throat and he's like, no. It's like you said. Finally, he's honest with him, tells him, we don't have the men. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Don't kill me. It's not necessary. And then we get a couple glimpses of the banners. And at first I was like, what the fuck? What is on those? And they're just flying by so fleetingly that it's hard to tell. But eventually you see the white flags with the red fiery hearts and the crowned stag. And I'm like, oh shit, it's Stannis, the Manus.
Yes.
The Manus. And he looks so fucking badass in that armor that he's wearing.
Yes, he does.
I don't know what it is about it. It's just so cool. The way, maybe like the way that the, there's like joints in the plate over where the abs are, kind of like simulates abs. It reminds me of the Iron Man suit sort of a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
I fucking love that armor. And he's not wearing a lot of plate. Like there's plate on the chest and stuff like that. A little bit on
I think his arms are free, right? I don't think he has
his legs and his arms, mostly leather.
Yeah.
Just interesting to note that it's not full plate armor. You know, most of the time, most of these guys are not wearing full plate armor. Even the Kingsguard, partial plate, a lot of leather. It's interesting.
Yeah. I guess it's because it's super heavy and it's hard to move around in. Which we get kind of up in the Erie when it Sir
Vardis Egan, yeah.
Yeah, because he got tired real fast and he was in full armor, full plate.
Yep. Yeah, so pretty slick. We see Jorah wearing more plate armor too when he fights that Dothraki, and he hits him with the Eric right across the side, and it just gets caught in his armor and he just slices the guy's head off.
Yeah.
Classic moment. So Mance is like, everybody stand down, you know, my people have bled enough. That's what I said, and I meant it. You know, and that's when Stannis and Davos come riding up. And Stannis is so fucking funny. He has a Heisenberg moment here. Or a Thug Life moment, at least. Do you know who I am? Mance is like, never had the pleasure. And then Davos is fucking on point. This is Stannis Baratheon, the one true king of the Seven Kingdoms. You know, more again than he gives Jon.
Yes.
This is Jon Snow, king of the North. And Mance has a great retort. Well, we're not in the Seven Kingdoms, and you're not dressed for this weather. And this time watching that's the first thing I noticed, that they're beyond the wall. There's snow everywhere. Stannis has like no fur on, nothing. Looks freezing. Even shooting that was probably cold.
Yeah. I love when they got off the horses. They look like almost like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, you know?
Oh, that's so cool. They all
like in synchronicity, like get off their horses at the same time and walk up to Mance all together. That's awesome. It was awesome.
And that one guy charges up like he's gonna hit Stannis. And then just whack! The horse comes out of nowhere.
And Mance is just like,
fuck. Yeah, so this is where Stannis has his badass line. This is Stannis Baratheon, one true king of the Seven Kingdoms. We're not in the Seven Kingdoms. You're not dressed for this weather. And Stannis just blows right past him. It is customary to kneel when surrendering to a king. And I'm like, damn, dude. Just so fucking badass. And Mance always, of course, tells him, you know, we don't fucking kneel. No matter how many thousands of your men of my men are going to be in chains by nightfall. You know, we don't kneel. That's just the way it is. And you got to give him credit for sticking to his guns, you know?
Yes.
Big time. So Stannis is surprised to see Jon Snow. He's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Or maybe it's Davos. Why is a Night's Watch brother
it was Davos.
in a wildling camp?
And this is when Davos actually meets Jon Snow, you know, which I thought is kind of cool because they're still together in season 7 and will be in season 8.
Yeah, totally. And so he's like, I was sent to discuss terms with the king beyond the wall. And Davos again on point. You're speaking to a king, bitch. You'll address him as your grace. I know he's the king. My father died for him. And I was like, oh, damn. Another powerful line.
Yeah.
Tells him he's Jon Snow, Ned Stark's son. And Stannis, man, he gives him respect just for that connection. He's like, your father was an honorable man. He was, your grace. What do you think he'd have done with him? Yeah,
because Ned Stark is the one that told Stannis that he's the rightful king. He's the one that sent that raven.
Yeah, and he died trying to preserve the throne for Stannis.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
So he almost has kind of a little bit of a debt to pay to Jon, you know?
Sure. And so it says a lot about Stannis that he even asks Jon, what do you think your father would have done with Mance? Because it's both respecting Jon because of his father and, you know, knowing that Ned was honorable and assuming that some of those traits were probably, you know, bred into Jon or taught to Jon.
Sure.
But simultaneously, he's testing him,
Mm-hmm.
And wants to see if that's the case by what Jon's answer is. And I love Jon's response. I was this man's prisoner once. He could have tortured me. He could have killed me, but he spared my life, And I think my father would have taken him prisoner, listened to what he had to say. And Stannis must have been satisfied with this because he's just like, very well then, take him. And Mance is taken up and brought off. And Jon steps up a little bit more, a little bit more comfortable with the situation now. He kind of goes out on a limb and kind of gives Stannis some instructions here,
Yeah.
If my father had seen the things that I've seen, he'd also tell you to burn the dead before nightfall. All of them. And I'm like, fuck.
I like that he talks about, like, if my father had seen, it's not like I've seen crazy things north of the wall, you need to burn the dead. He was kind of playing Stannis's game, okay, well, you don't know me from Adam, but you know my father and think he's an honorable man, so I'm going to talk as if this is what he would have done, so it gets through to Stannis.
It's true, too.
Yeah,
Ned
absolutely.
totally would have done that, So he's playing the game, but he's also being truthful. He's just like, you can already tell he's got some good, like, diplomatic skills.
Yes.
To some degree, So good negotiating, very slick way of handling that, and just super ominous, burn all the dead before nightfall. Fucking ominous. And Stannis has got to be like,
okay.
Why? Right. So that pretty much wraps up my number 5, Stannis ex machina. Out of nowhere, crushing those wildling bastards.
Awesome. Great scene.
Oh, yeah. How about your number 4?
My number 4 is Brienne and Arya.
Nice.
And I love the start of this. Arya is doing her kind of water dancing practice, and Brienne, first Pod forgot to hobble the horses, so she's pissed at Pod. It's at least 30 miles to the Bloody Gate. You're carrying the saddlebags. You lost the horses, essentially.
He's like, maybe it was thieves, but obviously there's nobody around.
There's nobody. There's not a soul. And Brienne comes up to Arya, and Arya turns around and she's like, has needle pointed at her. And she goes, people coming.
Right. And she's like standing there in a battle stance, basically,
yeah,
which
she's
is
like, you
really
can
cool.
shit later. There's people coming. And I love that line. And, Brienne starts talking to her, and Arya's really curious. You can just tell this is a woman in full armor with a big giant sword. And Arya's like, are you a knight? And Brienne's like, no, I'm not a knight. And, she says, you know how to fight. And I love their just story back and forth about, Brienne talking about, but my father didn't want me to, but I fought them anyways, and he finally gave in, basically, and said,
Arya's new idol, basically.
Yeah, and said, if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it right. And this makes Arya very curious, and I think a little open to Brienne, because she realizes that they're very similar.
Right,
and then,
even Brienne is like smiling, like she sees a reflection of herself, except just tiny and little.
They definitely have an instant connection, and we see this again at Winterfell when they have that amazing fight scene. Yep. When they
both smiling, and
they smile at each other at the end, and Brienne's like, damn, this girl's fucking awesome with a sword and a dagger. So, and then the Hound comes around the corner, and Brienne goes, 7 blessings. And the Hound, in typical Hound fashion, you want something?
Straight to the point.
And Podrick's face, he's like, oh my God, that's the Hound.
Yeah, and Brienne's smile slowly fades.
Yeah, and then she looks down at Arya as Arya's kind of moving behind the Hound, and she's kind of putting it together, and she's like, you're Arya Stark. And Arya goes, you're not a Northerner.
And how would she know that this is Arya?
I feel like
The Hound has been gone since after the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Arya's been gone since the execution of Ned Stark.
Yeah, that's a good question.
They didn't leave King's Landing together.
No, they didn't. And I'm trying to think. I feel like, oh no, maybe that was, they were talking about Sansa at the inn with Hot Pie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. That's actually a really good...
Whatever it was a stroke of brilliance.
Yeah, maybe because Brienne had asked where the Bloody Gate was, and Arya said it's 10 more miles. So maybe she put it together that maybe they were going to the Eyrie or coming from the Eyrie.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, Bran had the great idea that maybe that's where Arya was too. Oh, right, because when they were by the horse and Podrick was like, she's probably at the Vale. Her mom's dead, her dad's dead, her brother's dead, her aunt is still alive, and that's where they'd be heading. And that's when Bran was like, maybe that's where Arya is too.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, but that's still quite a stroke of brilliance to figure that out.
Yeah, that this random girl 10 miles away is her.
Yeah.
Maybe she could just tell by like her confidence and her like style, and maybe she had heard bits and pieces about her before or something, that she was like a tomboy and
could be
everything like that.
Yeah, so Brienne goes into, I swore a sacred vow to your mother, and my mother's dead. And
yeah, Arya basically admits her identity there. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Brienne figured it out for sure, and
right.
She does have the Hound to protect her, and Brienne goes, I wish I could have been there to protect your mom.
Right.
And
she says she had sworn to protect her, like her mom as well,
Yeah.
I swore to your mother I'd bring you home to her, and then she also says I swore a sacred vow to protect her. So Arya's like, why didn't you?
Exactly. And she commanded me to bring Jaime Lannister back to King's Landing.
You're paid by the Lannisters.
Yeah, and so the Hound gets really defensive here.
Yeah, you're here for the bounty on me.
Yep. And, she's
Paranoid.
like, I'm not paid by the Lannisters. And he's like, oh, really? Like, check out your sword. I've been looking at Lannister gold my entire life.
Yeah.
Tell me that's not Lannister gold.
She could have done a little bit of a better job of explaining the situation here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's like, Jaime Lannister gave me the sword, but she could have said like,
it was forged from ice.
Yeah, and it was given to me to protect Arya using her father's sword, or she could have said like it was a gift from Jaime as a thank you for saving his life,
Yeah, she left it very vague.
Right, when the Hound points out that it's Valyrian steel, she could have been like, yeah, like it's not a normal like payment. Obviously, the Lannisters aren't going to pay somebody in Valyrian steel. They didn't even have any for themselves. There's something like some special significance to this sword.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always wanted some Valyrian steel.
Yeah.
He thinks he's going to take it, no contest. It's hilarious.
And she's not coming with you, and Brienne's like, she is. She's coming with me, and she goes, I can keep you safe. And I love the Hound's sentiment here. He goes, safety? Right. Where the fuck's that? Her aunt is dead. Her father's dead. Her mother's dead. Winterfell is a pile of rubble. There's no safety, you dumb bitch. If you don't know that by now, you're the wrong one to watch over her.
And that's what you're doing. Watching over her.
Aye.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Epic. So it's really unfortunate because these four would have made an awesome team.
Oh my god, yes. Talk about a death squad.
Yep. But I guess instead we get a really epic fight. You give some, you take some,
Yeah, so I like that they're both really skilled fighters, but aren't knights.
Right?
They
that's another great parallel.
Play a little dirty here, and like Bran bites his ear, I think, and spits it out.
Yeah, Mike Tyson style.
Yeah, I mean, she's just wailing on him. I love her screaming in this episode.
Too. Yeah, her combat vocalizations are great.
Yeah,
like voice cracking and just wailing, and
I mean, and the Hound just beats the shit out of her, and she's beating the shit out of the Hound. I mean, talk about fortitude to go through that fight. Like, my son like headbutts me in the face and I'm down for the count for like 10 minutes.
Just accidentally does it too.
Yeah. Well, sometimes on purpose because he's 2, but.
Oh, right.
I
noticed some cool parallels here with the Mountain and the Viper fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So obviously Sandor and Gregor are both brothers. Okay. Gregor, the Mountain, is at the tip of a spear, down, dead, and ends up reversing it on the Mountain, or on the Viper, as we know. Here, Sandor is facing death, mirroring Gregor, as Brienne has the sword to his throat. He ends up reversing it on her and gets up on top of Brienne, just like Gregor got up on top of Oberyn. So think, just like, so as viewers, we're thinking, oh God, the same thing's going to happen. He's going to kill Brienne. But then they flip it on us again, and it's Brienne that ends up taking the victory here.
Yeah, no, that's a great correlation. Absolutely, I did not even pick up on that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. I liked how he grabbed the sword too. She's like, "I have no wish to kill you, sir," and he's like, "I'm not a knight," and he's like squeezes the Valyrian steel with his hands. Oh man, that's messed up. You can even see, if you're watching, he stands up as he's holding the sword with both hands, and the blade of the sword is like bending. He's really gripping it. Yeah. You can see it. It's cool.
Yeah. So I like that they just both kind of fight dirty and,
rocks.
He gets knocked off the cliff, and you can tell that he's not going to really get up from that. That was quite a fall. And I found it really funny because Pod loses both the horses and Arya in this scene.
Right. That's great.
Yeah. And so they're screaming, looking for Arya, and just like,
she's stealth mode.
Yeah. Like quiet as a cat. She, stealths down to the Hound, and she's very, very quiet here. And I know that we've talked about that the Hound is off her list, but I was kind of remembering this, and you would think that if he was off her list, that she would maybe try to help him.
Right.
But instead, she just leaves him for dead.
Or maybe just on principle, she doesn't want to kill anybody that's not on her list.
Yeah, there's
like a couple different ways you could look at it.
Yeah, there were a few different ways. I thought maybe, he's off her list and that's why she doesn't kill him. But I also thought maybe she assumes that he's going to die. So she just, wants it to last longer because he is on her list.
Right. Sort of mirroring a scene from The Walking Dead a couple weeks ago where Negan is trying to get Maggie to kill him, and he's like, kill me, and Maggie's like, oh, since you want me to kill you, I'm gonna let you suffer.
Yeah. So I thought it could go either way, because she also doesn't say anything to him,
right?
And then she also steals his silver. Like, dead men don't need silver.
Dead mice don't squeak.
Yep. I love the Hound here. He kind of laughs, I'm killed by a woman. He's trying to egg Arya on to, finish the job. He tells Arya all the reasons why he was originally on her list. I killed that butcher's boy, that ginger, blood all over my horse. My saddle smelled like butcher's boy for weeks. I should have fucked your sister bloody.
Right. At least I'd have one happy memory.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a funny line, because I'm sure the Hound's had sex before, which is maybe a little bit telling about his feelings for Sansa.
Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't.
Maybe he hasn't. We never really see him do that, have we?
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a raper to me.
No, but I would think, what about whoring?
They won't even look at him,
Yeah.
Maybe he's ashamed and is sort of introverted because of it.
Maybe he's a virgin.
Yeah.
Well, I would think, he could pay whores.
That's true.
Yes, but it was just kind of funny. And then I just love that look she gives him as she steals his silver and just walks off.
Yeah, so brutal.
Yeah.
And Rory McCann's performance here is just amazing. Man.
Kill me.
Yeah. Do I have to beg you to do it? Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. You know?
Yeah.
And they made his teeth look so gross. It's awesome.
I know. They almost look like dentures.
Yeah. There's a kind of a funny South Park parallel here. Just in bits and pieces and not too like on the nose. So you know how they say when you die you shit your pants. when Chef dies on South Park, he like falls off this cliff and like hits every fucking rock on the way down, and kind of like the way that the Hound falls down the cliff here.
Yeah.
And he's lying there, and I think like a lion comes up and like rips his face off or something, and then he's still lying there, and Cartman's like, maybe he's still alive, you guys. They say right before you die, you shit. And all of a sudden, Chef just shits everywhere, and he's dead. So the Hound may have spared himself the indignity of shitting his pants when he died here by taking a shit at the beginning of the scene.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, so that wraps up my number 4. What is your number 4?
Nice. My number 4 was Sandor begging for death.
Oh, okay.
He has a couple funny lines, like when she walks up to him, "You still here? Big bitch saved you," which is why I said big bitches at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
She's like, "I don't need saving." He's like, "No, not you. You're a real killer with your water dancing and your needle." And his leg is just like compound fractured, hardcore.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm definitely gonna die unless there's a maester hiding around that rock."
Yeah.
And for all we know, he did die. Maybe the Lord of Light brought him back or something.
Yeah.
And my heart bleeds for Sandor every time I see the scene.
Yeah, it's a sad one.
He gets to bring back one of his favorite sayings.
I'd skin you alive for wine. Fuck water.
Fuck water.
Yes.
It's great. Yeah, and like you said, killed by a woman. I bet you like that. And she like rubs it in. He's like, "You're going it alone. You won't last a day out there. I'll last longer than you," she says.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, too soon. And then he harkens back to a couple episodes ago. You remember where the heart is? When he showed her how to kill a man properly, and then she used it to kill Rorge.
Yep.
Fuck it. I'm ready. And I'm like, oh my God. I really think this is like a brilliant performance by Rory McCann.
Oh, for
here.
sure. It's an awesome... when he says, "Fuck it, I'm ready," it's so believable. Like, he's surrendering. He's like ready to go.
Yep. And then he starts off like just surrendering, and then he has to try to manipulate her, like you said. And then he just is begging, and it's like all these different stages of trying to die and different tactics to make it happen. And it's just like, seeing somebody so big and powerful and strong just reduced to something so weak and like sad and pathetic. It's really hard to watch.
It is hard to watch for sure. Definitely.
And then as she's walking off, "Kill me, kill me," it's like, oh my God. So brutal. I'm glad we get to see him again, because it would have sucked if this was the end of the Hound.
Yeah, I thought it was for sure when I first watched it. I was like, he's done.
Yeah, like how could he survive that? And he just has a little limp when we first see him.
Yeah.
Again.
Not bad.
Yeah, so that's my number 4. How about your numero 3?
My numero 3 is Tywin's dominance before his demise.
Nice.
So we get Tywin and Cersei together, and he is basically laying down the law and telling his daughter, "You are marrying Loras Tyrell, whether you like it or not." And Cersei is stubborn as fuck, and she's like, "I will not."
Yeah.
So Tywin goes, "Jaime cannot marry or inherit lands. Tyrion's sentence will be carried out tomorrow. You have on several occasions made great claims about your commitment to this family's future. Your role in this future, or your role in that future, is more vital now than it ever was." And I love that he kind of throws that back in her face. because she's always talking about how she's the only one listening to his stories.
Right.
His legacy stories. And that's when she goes, I'm not interested in another one of your smug stories about the time you won. This isn't going to be one of those times.
Beautiful line.
It is. And then it's even
as much
better.
As you hate Cersei, you gotta like that.
Yeah. And I love Tywin's response. Do you think you'll be the first person dragged into the sept to be married against her will? And I just got this like image of them dragging her up to the altar.
Right. And I mean, they already did it once because she I guess she was kind of excited to marry Robert the first day. So
yeah.
Never mind. She willingly went into the sept that time. Yeah.
So then she goes into, and this kind of ties back into my number 5, because this, we've talked about this multiple times on the podcast of Cersei's really kind of only, redeemable trait is the love and passion for her children. And she goes, do you remember at the Battle of the Blackwater? She basically tells Tywin that she was going to kill Tommen and herself. She had the essence of Nightshade. And she goes...
That's how far I was willing to go when I thought someone awful had come to take my son away.
Yes.
Now someone awful is coming to take him away. You, Dad!
Yeah, and she's like, Joffrey's dead, Marcella has been sold like livestock, and now you want to ship me off to Highgarden and steal my boy, my last boy. And she continues, Marjorie will dig her claws in, you'll dig your claws in, and you'll fight over him like beasts until you rip him apart. And the way she says rip him apart, it's really heartbreaking because she's like, and then wonderful acting. Line. Oh my God. I will burn our house to the ground before I let that happen. And
epic. Her delivery on that line, so intense.
Marjorie will dig her claws in, you will dig your claws in, and you'll fight over him like beasts until you rip him apart. I will burn our house to the ground before I let that happen.
And how will you do that?
Like her voice kind of cracks and she's so intense.
And he's just like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to burn our house to the ground?
Yeah. And she's like, I'll tell everyone the truth.
What truth would that be?
You don't know, do you? Well, what am I talking about?
Yeah, you never believed it.
Yeah.
How's that possible?
How can someone so consumed by the idea of his family have any conception of what his actual family was doing? I loved that sentiment to Tywin because that's truly what is going on. Mm-hmm. He's so wrapped up in the idea of family and legacy, but he pays no attention to his children.
His actual family.
And so we know that Tywin is aware of the rumors, and to some extent, I think Tywin knows they're true deep inside, but he refuses to believe it. You know what I mean? Like, he knows it's true, but in his mind, he's like, it's not true.
He's built a wall in his mind where he just can't go there.
Yeah, because he's not that stupid. Because she's like, I will tell, everything they say about Jaime and me is true. Your legacy is a lie.
We were right there in front of you and you didn't see us.
Yeah, if you would have just paid attention to your kids, you would have seen it the whole time. And Tywin's like, no, that's not true.
Yeah, everything they say is true about Jaime and me. No, your legacy is a lie. And he kind of like freaks out and turns away. And he's like, no. And he's like, I don't believe you. And then he turns back and he sort of smiles like a rebound of confidence in his belief. And she's just like, yes, you do. You believe me.
Yeah. And the Rains of Castamere are playing in the background.
Yeah. And this is when I realized that Tywin's whole world comes down in just one episode.
Completely.
Before this episode, he was on top of the world. And then he learns the truth about Jaime and Cersei. He gets fucking killed, all within one episode, man.
He had a bad day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So Reigns of Castamere is playing, and then it switches over to Cersei going to see Jaime.
Yep.
And, they have their little conversation, and, Jaime's like, you won. Great job. You're one brother less. Like, how do you feel? And he goes in and he's like, Tyrion is your family too, because they're talking about the legacy and the family, and he is not.
You don't get to choose.
Yeah.
I do, she says. So do you. And then later in this episode, he makes a choice. He chooses family, and he frees his brother.
Yes, absolutely. That's such a great tie-in here. She blames Tyrion for killing their mother. And this goes to show like how deep her hatred is, that she has to, in her mind, I mean, he's a baby. He didn't like purposely kill her. And Jaime kind of makes that point.
Are you really mad enough to blame him for that?
Seriously, like, that's kind of ludicrous, truly.
Right. And some people, speculate that Jaime and Cersei may be bastard children of the Mad King. So the use of the word mad here is just kind of interesting.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. That brings kind of a whole new dynamic to this scene for sure.
Well, think about the dynamics it brings to the rest of Cersei's arc with the wildfire. And, her obsession with fire and
blowing up a shit ton of innocent people in the Sept.
Paranoia about her enemies. Blowing up the Sept is a great point. Exactly.
Wow. Interesting. And I love her line, a disease doesn't decide to kill you, all the same, you cut it out before it does.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really a harsh thought, because, I mean, I'm sure in this world, they don't have ultrasound equipment. So they would never have known that Tyrion was a dwarf, or that he would, be in some type of position to harm Joanna Lannister during birth and delivery enough to kill her. Most of the time, breached babies or babies that, cause hemorrhaging or whatever, you can kind of have a idea of that with modern technology.
Right. See it coming, literally.
Yeah. Like, you can avoid it with a C-section too. So I thought that was a really interesting line. And then she reveals to Jaime, I told him about us. I love my brother. I love my lover. I don't want to talk about Tywin Lannister. I don't choose Tywin Lannister.
Jaime is shocked.
Yeah. And
she's manipulating hard too.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like getting down to suck his dick.
Kissing his hand.
Yeah. And then I just wrote in my note, incest. So, very powerful, a powerful scene for Cersei, really. And also Tywin. I mean, this was kind of his last try of getting Cersei to do what he wanted, and he really kind of lost that battle too.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that was my number 3. Nice.
Let's see, a couple more things about that scene. I was glad that Jaime defended Tyrion. He didn't decide to kill her. He was an infant.
Yeah.
Etc. And then there was controversy among hardcore book reader fans when she's like, let's fuck right here, right now. Someone could see. I don't care. He knocks the white book off the table.
Oh.
And that was like, people thought that was like crazy because he sort of has reverence for the white book.
Yeah.
Etc. And it's like, one of a kind history of the Kingsguard type thing. So he just kind of throws it right off the table, and people thought that was like maybe inauthentic or like disrespectful for Jaime to do. But at the same time, he has like 2 lines in the white book. Maybe it's like it's been stewing, and maybe he's just really mad at the white book, and that's one of his failures, but he's succeeding with his sister, at this point. So in a symbolic choice, he like throws the white book aside.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a crazy scene for sure.
Awesome.
My number 3 is Varys's sacrifice.
Okay.
And
Nice.
Varys opens the door for Tyrion, and too much time has passed, so he knows that something has happened. He's like, "What have you done? Quickly, trust me, my friend. Quickly." And so they hurry off, and he has like this fetish with putting people in boxes.
Yeah, because he put the sorcerer in the box. That's right.
So then he's gonna put Tyrion in the box, dick in a box, and
I was just gonna say that.
And so Tyrion's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Trust me, my friend. I've brought you this far. It's like, "Yeah, it's true. You gotta help me get out. So I don't think you're gonna like kill me at this point because I was gonna die anyway. It would be kind of counterproductive. You could have just done nothing and it would have had the same result." So he hops in the box, and I thought there was a really cool shot as he settles into the box. The camera is looking through one of the air holes cut inside of the box, and it's zooming, and the hole is getting bigger, and you can see Tyrion's face through the hole. And then it all fades to black as the top slides onto the box, and it closes, and Tyrion is shrouded in darkness. I just thought it was a really beautifully rendered shot.
Sure.
Whoever directed this scene, really good eye for cinematography. Really well done. So Varys, ever faithful, he stays to make sure that Tyrion is loaded properly onto the ship, and like the crane is lifting up Tyrion and putting the box down. And once he's safely on board, Varys is like, "Cool, mission accomplished," And he turns and starts to walk back towards King's Landing to go back to the Red Keep. I'm assuming, and that's when dong dong the bells ring, and we know what Varys thinks about bells. They're always something bad, whether it's a wedding or a dead king or whatever. So he knows that Tyrion must have killed Tywin or something like that.
Somebody.
And he realizes that it's too dangerous for him to go back. They would know that he's gone. If this has been discovered already and nobody can find him, it will be suspicious. So it would be too dangerous for him to return. So he makes the decision to leave King's Landing. And I'm just thinking, wow, like he worked his way up from the gutter of some shithole in Essos, and fought and sold his, all of his parts of his body that he needed to, and stole and acquired skills and built this network of spies and did all this work to put himself in this position of power in King's Landing, and he just sacrificed all of it to save the imp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he gave up everything that he worked his whole life to accomplish. He must see great value in Tyrion. He must.
Yeah, and I think it echoes back to the trial too, when Tyrion goes, "Have you forgotten?" And he goes, "Sadly, my lord, I never forget anything," or something like that.
Right.
And this is very true here. He didn't forget.
Yeah, we had been speculating about what Varys' motivation was for like bringing up stuff he didn't need to at the trial, like that Tyrion may have been converted into a northern loyalist by his marriage to Sansa Stark and everything, like adding details that he didn't need to add, Yeah. One of our listeners brought up the excellent point. I apologize to you that I can't remember who it was at this moment, but they mentioned that it makes perfect sense with Varys' plan that he wants Tyrion to be convicted, and he wants him to be removed from the scene at King's Landing because the last thing that he wants is a competent leader and strategist to be around when the team that he backs, Team Targaryen, shows up at King's Landing. Having Tyrion there would be too much of a threat to the success of Daenerys.
Good point. Absolutely.
So it makes perfect sense. He wants to put the nail in his coffin, so to speak, and then whisk him away and save him just to get him out of there and add him to Team Dany,
Yeah.
But also, like, it seems here that Tyrion, or that Varys doesn't have anything to do with Tyrion's execution of Tywin, right? He seems surprised by it. Not quite the same in the books. Varys is leading Tyrion through the tunnels to escape, and he's kind of like pointing things out as they're walking along, oh, this passage leads to here. This passage leads to here. Oh, and that ladder over there, that leads up to the hand of the king's chamber. But don't worry about that, Tyrion. And Tyrion's like, wait a second, type thing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
In one stroke, he removes Tyrion from King's Landing, brings him over to where he needs to be put on Team Dany, and simultaneously manipulates Tyrion into removing Tywin from the equation.
That's awesome.
Which is fucking brilliant.
We realize really just how smart he is.
Yeah, and so I think, remember how Jaime is so pissed off at Tyrion when he's on the boat to Dorne with Bran, and he's like, if I, next time I see Tyrion, I'll cut him in two, basically.
Yeah.
So he's all pissed at Tyrion because, why is it? Because Tyrion killed Tywin? That's what he's all mad about?
I think so.
Right. In the books, a little different. You guys are going to want to read the books to get the backstory to get more information about what happens and the conversation in between Jaime and Tyrion as Jaime frees Tyrion from the cell. So read the books to find out what happens there.
I haven't gotten to that yet in the books.
Cool. Yeah, I won't spoil it for you.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So, just basically, I was just amazed that Varys put everything that he's built on the line here and gave it all up for Tyrion. And then he hops on the boat and, like a faithful servant, that he always says, I serve the realm. Like a faithful servant, he sits there right by Tyrion's box, dutifully, protectively, as the boat sails off.
Yeah, I loved that, with the bells kind of ringing in the background, and he's just kind of sitting there and just gently puts his hand on the box, like, I'm protecting this, you know.
And man, what a pivotal episode for so many characters in this series.
For sure. Oh my goodness.
The trajectory changes in so many, are so drastic in so many cases.
Absolutely.
It's wild. Yeah, so that's the end of my number 3. How about your number 2?
My number 2 is Winter is Coming. And this is when Jon and Mance have their conversation.
All right.
So this is actually the start of the episode. Yeah. And we start off at the wall. The gate has been lifted. Jon is walking out and
bodies everywhere.
Oh my, littered across. And I love that aerial shot of like from the top of the wall facing down to Jon as he's walking through the snow, and you just see all those bodies. And Jon passes the giant, and the crows are eating the giant. And I thought that was interesting symbolism there. Yeah, absolutely. You
could feed those crows for a lifetime too.
For sure. That's a lot of food. And so Jon gets into the woods, and I love the cinematography. We can hear him kind of breathing hard, and he's clearly cold. He looks very pained. I mean, he's basically thinking like, I'm going to be walking to my death here.
Yeah.
A very brutal death, as we've come to find out. And
he's brooding as always.
Yes. And we see kind of shadows in the forest moving around, and then we see people, and as he's walking into the camp, he like slowly raises his hands up, and he gets in front of Mance, and he goes, I've been sent to negotiate with you. And Mance is like, you're all in black.
Yeah.
Basically, like, I'm kind of disappointed in you, basically.
Right. I was hoping your loyalty was real when you pledged yourself to us, Jon Snow. And truly, I was.
Yeah, and Jon kind of reveals to Mance here that his loyalty was always to the Night's Watch. He reveals that Qhorin Halfhand made me kill him so that you would trust me, so I could basically infiltrate your camp.
Talk about a sacrifice. There's another big one.
Right. And they kind of start talking about the battle, and Mance brings up Ygritte, And John
You could tell he had a healthy respect for Ygritte, too. He's deeply saddened by... He grimaces when he learns of her death.
Yeah. She's definitely a loved character. And, he goes, she's dead. You're doing? John goes, no, not my doing.
And I have to say, in the books, John may have hesitated slightly before answering this question.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there may be a hesitation, and you'll have to read the books to find out why.
Oh, okay. So he goes, we'll drink to her. And they're pormenting what looks to me like fermented milk. I think that's what they're drinking. And John
Something like that. Ugh.
Well, gets white.
Yeah, that's so gross.
And John is really apprehensive to take a drink. And I love Mance. He goes, of all the ways I'd kill you, poison would be the last.
Right. He's fucking Mance Raider,
Yeah, he's going to fucking torture
you for days. He's not the Queen of Thorns, yeah.
Yeah, and we've come to know that poison is a woman's weapon.
Except for Oberyn. But then again, he's got elements of, he's a very rounded human, embracing the sun and the moon, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Elements, embracing the elements of both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, so I love when John takes a drink and he's like, that's not wine.
No, it's a proper northern drink, Jon Snow.
Yeah.
You did well, fought hard, killed some of our strongest men. One of our giants went into your tunnel and never came out again. Mag the Mighty.
He's dead. He killed my friend Gren.
He was their king, the last of a bloodline that stretches back before the first men.
Yeah, well, Gren came from a farm.
Mag and Gren.
Gren and Mag.
Yeah. Beautiful juxtaposition of just like this monstrous king of the giants being brought down by a farm boy, and
And I like how they put their people first. So Mance says Mag and Gren.
Yeah.
And then John says Gren and Mag,
it's just so poetic, like these two completely different types of souls clashing in this one instance in history and just like going down in history together. It's like, it's just so weird and epic.
Yeah, and you also have, the king beyond the wall and the future Lord Commander sitting toasting their fallen friends together, which is
Yep.
You can just tell the amount of respect that they both have for each other. Yes, John kind of betrayed Mance. Yes, he's a crow. Yes, he's the king beyond the wall. But when it comes down to it, I think they're both really kind of noble people and honorable.
Right.
And
they're both honorable for sure in their own ways, and they both recognize it. I agree.
Yeah. And so I found it interesting in this scene that Mance essentially offers John guest right here because he offers to feed him.
Right.
And
true.
it pans to John's face, and John kind of closes his eyes and is like, oh, I'm doomed. And, so Mance starts going in that, we threw the whole army at you, 100,000 strongs, and you fired on us with everything you had. And when I saw this, I sent 400 men 5 miles north of here to go over the wall. I expect half of them are going to make it over by the end of the day. And, John's...
I'm being honest with you, Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Which is more than you've ever done for me.
Which is true.
Yeah, and this is the part where he starts appealing to Jon's developing sense of philosophy. My people have bled enough. We're not here to conquer. We're here to hide behind your wall. Just like you. We need your tunnel. Winter
is coming. And I love that. That's why I titled it for my number 2, because he's saying the stark words to Jon.
Yeah, to the stark words. If there's anything that he can say that's going to strike a chord with Jon, it's connecting about this.
Yeah. And so he basically also threatens him to let us through or we'll kill every last man at Castle Black.
Right. I mean, it's not just that, though. He says, like, here's the bargain. You go back, you open the gates to us, and I swear to you, no one else will die. Like, that's it. We won't kill anybody. All we want to do is hide behind the wall. Refuse, and we'll kill every fucking last one of you.
Yeah. Which they can easily do.
Yeah.
And Jon kind of lunges for the knife, and he goes, killing a man in his own tent after he just offered you peace. Is that what the Night's Watch has become?
Yeah, he's like, Jon is like, his eyes keep flicking over to the blade in the stump, and his hand, which is starting at his knee, his right hand is like
twitching,
slowly moving backwards along his thigh and like preparing to just reach over and grab it. So funny.
Yeah. And then, then we cue the horns and Stannis, which we already kind of talked about.
Right. But yeah, like, again, like you were saying, are you capable of that, Jon Snow, killing a man in his own tent when he's just offered you peace? Is that what the Night's Watch is? Is that what you are, Jon Snow, And
yeah. Right after he said the Stark words. Right.
Yeah, it's a really important introspective moment for Jon. He's got to be feeling sympathy for Mance's plight and the wildlings who he's developed a bond with.
Sure.
An intimate bond, And
to say the least.
yeah. That was a double entendre there. And he, they both know winter's coming, and Jon doesn't, he's all about being honorable, like he's never, like, going back to Sandor potentially being a virgin. Jon was a virgin before Ygritte because he didn't want to dishonor.
He didn't want to make another
his
bastard.
Offspring and create a bastard, right? Yeah, exactly. So, it's just, he's appealing to Jon in all the right ways. Winter is coming. You're a man of honor. Are you really going to do this? Type thing. And then, bam! Surprise! Stannis ex machina.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, just
Incoming.
A really powerful scene, though.
Very powerful. I really enjoy that scene every time I watch it.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, that pretty much wraps up my number 2. What is your number 2?
Okay, we've had Shay the funny whore, we've had Shay the annoying whore, and now my number 2 is Shay the dead whore.
Okay.
So we see a lion wrought in iron as Tyrion enters the chambers of the Hand. And he pauses slightly, surprised to see the outline of a woman in his father's bed. A woman? When was the last time his father has ever been with a woman?
Right.
Joanna Lannister? He's never in his entire life seen his father with a woman. So he's shocked just that there's a woman in his bed at all. And then shock turns to
horror.
Confusion and horror, yes, when she starts to roll over. Tywin, my lion,
and she looks very comfortable, and this goes back to what I was talking about. I think she's been kept there, and I think he's been doing her for a while. Yeah,
ever since she got quote on that boat.
Yes, I think she's been there the whole time. Yep.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And this is interesting because we have 2 scorned lovers facing off, mirroring Jon and Ygritte in the last episode.
Oh, yeah.
And in the last episode, Ygritte hesitates, and it costs her her life. And in this episode, Shay does not hesitate. She reaches for the knife, and that's what costs her her life. So in both cases, the woman ends up dying, but they both react differently. Like, there was still hope for Jon and Ygritte. Here, Shay lunges for the knife. So, it's just pretty interesting. She's struggling, and he's fighting her off, and he's on top of her, and he knocks the knife out of her hand, and she's like slapping him, like girl style, like the sand snakes with their little hand slap game, and he grabs for the necklace and like lifts her, like her neck and her body up, and starts strangling her with the necklace, and she's like, ah! He freaks out and knocks him. and she knocks him off the bed, which gives him the perfect leverage to finish choking her out. And talking about amazing performances in this episode, his face as he squeezes the chain around her neck, oh my god, like all the emotions,
right?
Like he like can't, it's like he can't even comprehend the reality. It's like a little kid who's seeing something horrible and like squeezing their eyes shut as tightly as possible. You know what I mean? He's like doing that.
Totally.
And his mouth is contorting.
And his face. Oh, it's so sad. It's like he's almost killing himself in a way too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a great way to put it. And it's just heartbreaking. And
Reigns of Castamere is playing very ominously.
Yep. And those hands of gold are always cold. In the books, it's more clear that necklace is made of golden hands.
Oh, okay.
Because it's the necklace of the hand of the king.
I found it kind of ironic that he kills her with a necklace, because that's what he was on trial for, is killing Joffrey using a necklace.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Shay was kind of the nail in the coffin for him being convicted.
Right.
Like
Karma's
with her story, and also giving Tyrion enough rage to have his outburst and fuck the whole plan up. So she gets strangled with a necklace because Tyrion was on trial for using a poison called the Strangler that was carried in a necklace.
Yes, beautiful. Beautifully laid out there, Rachel. Yeah. Nice job. So man, that's just so brutal. And after he kind of lets tension off the necklace after she stops struggling, and the camera pans over, and Shay's head is upside down and she's dead. And every time, it's just unfortunate for the actress. Every time I notice there's like a big vein sticking out in the middle of her forehead.
Yeah.
You know what's like funny? A shadow on half her face.
I actually have a vein like that in my forehead too. When I get like really mad or if I hang upside down like the way she was, I have that same vein, and it causes shadows. And
in this angle and the shape of her head, it just makes her look like an alien, kind of.
Yeah, for sure.
I always think that every time, It's just kind of funny.
Yes.
So he's freaking out and he apologizes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Twice, and then it's fucking brutal, and he just keeps getting the shit end of the stick every fucking time,
Yes.
And like you can't help but feeling sorry for him, like. All he does is try so hard to like be good and do good things, and people hate him, and people, abuse him and everything. And he's a dwarf, which just makes you feel even more badly for him.
I know.
And so you just can't help but feeling sorry for him. And as mad as he had been at Tywin beforehand, now he is 1,000 times more mad, And as that madness is sort of like realizing itself, he looks over and sees Joffrey's crossbow hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
Yep. And that wraps up my number 2.
Awesome. It's a great number 2.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a good scene.
It is. It's a sad scene, but it's really intense too.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's your number 1?
My number 1 is Tywin's death.
Awesome.
And I do want to just start kind of at the beginning with Tyrion's escape. We find out that Varys is helping Jaime, and the look on Tyrion's face is like relief, because I think he's relieved that, obviously he's being let go by his brother, but I think he's also relieved that he finds out that Varys is helping, because he realizes that Varys kind of
is still on his side.
Roundabout way kept his word to Tyrion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, the funny thing too, first line of the scene, "Oh, get on with it, you son of a whore."
Yeah.
Is that any way to speak about her mother?
Yes. I love
Fucking
that.
Classic.
And it's so sad to watch them say goodbye.
Yeah, it's really it's funny too, because he's like, just walk up this door, knock twice again, and Varys will open. And then he just sort of starts walking away, It's like he's like rushing off, trying to get back to his post so he won't be noticed. And it's like he doesn't comprehend the full gravity of the moment, like that they may never see each other again.
Yeah.
And Tyrion speaks up, I suppose this is goodbye then, you know, and Jaime realizes what's happening.
And he rushes over to him and just gives him this huge hug and kisses him. And it was so sad. Like, I love that they chose for Jaime to kiss him, like on the side of the face. 'Cause it's like brotherly love, you know, it just felt so real and so painful. And Jaime
heart-wrenching moment
rushes off again, and Tyrion again goes, Jaime, thank you for my life. And this is really telling because
quickly now,
I mean, not only is the obvious reason that Tyrion is saying that because he's saving his life here, but I think it's also symbolic of Jaime making his life easier and more enjoyable all through the years.
His whole life.
Yeah. Thank you for my life. You know, he's always protected him and helped him and loved him and treated him like a normal person. So I loved that sentiment in this scene.
Yeah.
Thank you for my life.
And it kind of chokes up Jaime too.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's just like, quickly now.
Yeah, so I did have Shay, the dead whore, in my notes as well. So I'll just kind of skip over that because where I'll pick up is when he picks up the crossbow and starts walking through the hallway, because he has this like, he's kind of dragging the thing that pulls the string back.
Right.
And it's kind of creepy.
Sort of like Halloween, right?
Yes.
Doesn't he like drag the knife along stuff?
Yes, that's what I thought too. It's like kind of Grim Reaper-y.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, God damn, the hands chambers are extensive. Like, that's a long walk down the hallway to the privy.
Yeah. And he kind of kicks open the door and Tyrion put down the crossbow.
And he sort of figures out who let him out real quick too, huh?
Yes, he does. You know, how did you escape? I assume it's your brother. He's always had a soft spot for you.
Yeah.
And
so he's been paying attention to his actual family a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. They start kind of having their conversation, and Tywin is, shaming your father has always given you pleasure, because he's asking Tyrion to like let him get out of the shitter and
right, Elvis style.
Yeah, into, a more appropriate place to have a conversation.
Just throw it back to the Hound scene. And you shit yourself when you die. Tywin's in the right place. And I guess we'll get to see if Lannisters really do shit gold.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's super funny.
I can't take all the credit for that one.
Oh man. So Tyrion's like, you would actually kill me for a crime that I didn't commit. I didn't kill Joffrey. And on
top of that, he's like, you've wanted me dead my whole life. And Tywin's just like, yeah.
Pretty much. But then it's very interesting what Tywin does here. He said, I would never let Ilan Payne take your head. You're a Lannister. You're my like, son. Real? And it's like, seriously? What the fuck? Why is he in a cell still then? Yeah. He's just trying to get out of the situation.
Totally. Just saying whatever he needs to say, trying to manipulate, just like the Hound was to try to get Arya to kill him. He's just saying what he needs to say to try to get Tyrion to not kill him.
Exactly. So they start talking about Shay, and Tywin's like, oh, well, she was just a whore.
Say that word again.
Yeah. And what? You'll kill your father on the privy? No, you're my son. He keeps saying that to Tyrion. Like, you're my son. You're not going to kill me.
Right.
And I love Tyrion's response to that. You sentenced me all the same. Why?
Yeah.
And
why?
Why would you do that? Like,
and is that the reason why he went back to Tywin? Like, he just has to know why? Kind of like Orson with the Beatles, crushing Beatles, conk, 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 Tywin just trying to conk, conk Tyrion. He just needs to know why.
I think he's trying to figure it out. Like, why? I need to know why before I flee. Like, why would my own father do this? Especially now that you're sitting here saying that I'm a Lannister and I'm your son. Like, why do you have me on on trial for a murder I didn't commit and
that
allowing
I didn't commit.
Ilan Payne cutting his head off the next day?
Yeah.
So again, Tywin is like, let's go out of the privy. Like, let's go talk somewhere else. And
I can't go back there.
Can't go back there. And
She's goes, in there.
You're afraid of a dead whore?
Vroom.
You shot me.
I love the way he delivers that line too.
You shot me.
Like, it's surprise and shock and
yeah, it's
terror.
Almost like a question. Like,
oh my God, he actually did it.
Yeah.
And then...
And there's zero hesitation too. The second he says whore, it's just boom.
Yeah. And then he looks at Tyrion and he goes, "You're no son of mine." And it's like, yeah, we know this. Like, we know that you don't like Tyrion. You know that you don't even think he's your son. So
now the truth comes out.
Yeah, I am your son. I have always been your son. And then it's lights out.
And as he, after the that first shot with the crossbow too, he sort of just calmly reaches for the reloading device. And he's just taking his time reloading it while Tywin is kind of reacting.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out what just happened.
You shot me. Oh, it's crazy the way he says that.
Yeah, I love it. He's such a great actor. I love Tywin. He's one of my favorite characters for sure.
Definitely. That's one cool thing about reading the books second is that you have these pictures of the characters in your mind. And like, yeah, the book gives you detailed descriptions of the way the characters look and like their, defining traits and everything. And the book descriptions sort of meld onto the base that you have of the characters from the show. And if you like these actors like we do, it just enhances the books a lot more, having this vivid image of what the characters look like.
It definitely does. I started the books after I watched the show.
Yeah, same here.
And I'm kind of glad I did because
I would advocate that.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time I would be saying that opposite. Like, I read the Harry Potter books before I watched the movies, and I would always go back, oh, the books are way better. But in this scenario, I think watching the show first, while the books are different and different things happen, watching the show before reading the books enhances your book experience for sure.
And interestingly, how they always say the books are better. You're just setting yourself up for disappointment if you read the books first and then watch the show.
Yeah.
Whereas if you watch the show's fucking awesome, and then you read the books, and the books are even more awesome. So you're not being disappointed by the secondary medium. It's enhancing and expanding everything on the show and giving you more detail and more knowledge and more experience. So it's just so much better watching the show first and then reading the books.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with that sentiment for sure. So that wraps up my number one. What is your number one?
Real quick before my number one, Tyrion he drops the mic, or the crossbow in this case, as he walks out of the privy, which is hilarious.
That's
just a funny little moment.
Yeah.
So my number one is, it's not silver, it's iron.
Ooh, okay.
Rachel, what kind of horse is Arya riding here?
An Icelandic pony. That's in my notes.
Nice. Yeah, and in my notes is, Rachel, what kind of horse is Arya riding here?
She's in Iceland. She's on a pony.
And you can tell they're at the salt pans because she gets to the boat and they're shoveling salt, which is funny. And I think on this boat ride, she goes by the name Salty.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Because she always, she's preparing for her stint at the House of Black and White by going by all these different names.
For sure.
Squab, Salty, Airy, etc.
Yeah.
So kind of funny. She wants to see the captain. She's already talking to him. She says she wants to go north to the wall, which tells her that her first thought is to go to Jon, obviously, so that he can muss her hair and call her little sister, as we hear so many times in the books from Arya's perspective. One of her favorite things, Jon, rubbing his hand through her hair and calling her little sister. They do have a very special bond. Those two.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. And so it turns out no chance of going there. He's like, I'm not going north, child. She's begging, like, I can work, I can pay, I won't need a cabin. Yeah, I can scrub the decks, swab the poop decks on all 7 seas. And he's like, I'm not going north, child. I'm going home. Where's home? The free city of Bravos. Serendipity, you know. And he turns and starts to walk away, and she's like, wait, I have something else. More silver won't make a difference, girl. It's not silver, it's iron. And she holds out the coin given to her by Jaqen H'ghar, the faceless man coin. And it is amazing the way the captain's face and attitude and demeanor changes upon seeing that coin. He's so shocked. He like doesn't even know how to react. It takes him a second, Yeah. He knows that, you see that coin and you know that the person you're dealing with is not to be messed with and that they're reporting to a higher power,
Yeah.
How did you... Valor Morgulis. And he like tips his head. Valor Dohaeris.
Yes.
Of course, you shall have a cabin. And he just gives her like everything she would ask for, but hasn't.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's just so fucking cool, and excitement and triumph abound as the music, changes from the sad Rains of Castamere that we've been hearing all episode, basically. And
I love this music when she's on the boat.
It's the Game of Thrones theme.
Yes.
Like upbeat and
with
orchestrated
like choir,
slightly differently.
with like choir humming.
Yeah, singing choirs. And
it's beautiful.
So good.
I've gone to the Game of Thrones live concert experience twice with my husband.
Fuck you.
I'm serious. If it's coming to your area, you have to go. It is so amazing. I'm not going to spoil it.
I'm hoping they do another round.
Yeah, I think they will.
We've
been scouring the internet waiting to get tickets again for next year. But they do this. I'm not going to give away too much because it really is an experience and you do have to just check it out for yourself. But when they do this song, they have the choir and they're like walking around the stage in like this big kind of like snake-like, or they
procession.
had it. Yes. And it's just it's so amazing hearing it live. It brings the music to life for sure.
I saw Star Wars in concert too, and it was a similar thing. Like not without all the theatrics and everything that not to spoil anything from Game of Thrones in concert, but without all of the theatrics and stuff that's like happening around you, it was still amazing hearing the Star Wars music being played by a live orchestra, even just synced up to video montages on the screens.
And it's completely enhanced my watching of the show because I hear the music now. Yeah,
you have like explanations for the music and like
and different memories for it, and I have different feelings for it, and I pick up on the music changes. And I really didn't start noticing the music until the first time we went to the concert a couple years ago. And I walked out of there like looking at my husband. I was like, that is the coolest thing we've ever seen.
Yeah, I've got to go. I've heard it's really cool.
I mean, even if you have to like drive and stay overnight, I'm telling you, like save up. It's so worth it. It's unbelievable, especially if you guys, I mean, if you're fans enough to listen to a podcast about Game of Thrones, this will blow your mind. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah, and the concert's pretty good too.
Yeah.
Speaking of the music, a unique thing that they do here as the episode ends, the screen cuts to black and the music continues to play for like another 1 or 2 bars before the credits pop up. And it just like really like it leaves you sitting there absorbing the music. and the emotion, and I just thought it was a really interesting and excellent creative directing decision to let the music ride and over the blackness for a few minutes. It's like this music video that I made back in high school to like like this heavy metal song, and it's the whole video is like cutting back and forth between all these different images, like creating these crazy ambiances, and then as the song peaks and like goes into its like most intense moment, I just cut the screen to black for that whole like 10-15 seconds of the most intense moment of the song. And then as the song ends, you get a little bit more visual stimulation, but it's like sometimes removal of the visual stimulus enhances the, like, you know, it makes it more intense because you're fully enveloped in the sound and you're noticing all the little details of the sound. And
completely.
Yeah, it's just really cool. I love that directing decision. Very nice directing in this episode, just in general. Like, there's that one shot where he's like, let's just, you know, Tywin's like, let's just go back into my chambers and talk. And he starts to stand up, and Tyrion just like raises the crossbow a little bit.
Yeah, like sit down.
Yeah, Tywin pauses, and it's this shot where it starts off zoomed in on Tyrion's face, focused, and then the camera pans downward to the crossbow, and the focus shifts from Tyrion's face to the crossbow, focusing in on the gilded front with the little gilded lion and stuff.
Yes.
Another beautifully captured shot. Just so many good things like that all throughout this episode. Just really, really well directed episode.
Absolutely.
I wish I knew who directed it so I could give them the full credit they deserve. Maybe I'll mention it like in editing. I'll look it up or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just a great episode, and like I mentioned before, it's just so pivotal. There's so many characters there whose stories just drastically change after this. The Hound, obviously. Arya sent in a totally different path. Varys and Tyrion sent in a totally different path. Everything changes up at the Wall. Everything changes for the Wildlings. Everything changes for Stannis. Everything changes for everybody. And it's just really, this is one of the most pivotal episodes of the series. And I don't mean pivotal as meaning important, although it is important. I mean pivotal as in storylines are pivoting, like directions are changing, you know?
Yeah, so I just looked it up. It's directed by Alex Graves.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's written by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss.
Of course.
Of course it is. Yeah. It's a great episode. So much happens in this episode. I mean... Yeah.
Let's jump into our notes because there's so much more to talk about that we haven't even gotten close to covering.
I know. I had a hard time picking my...
I could have had a top 20 for this episode.
So could I. I mean, like, we haven't talked about Bran or Dany. It's like...
Yeah. Or, like, we just barely mentioned Bran at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the mountain. God damn, yeah.
I know.
So, all right, so take it away. What do you got?
So let's start with the mountain, and
all right,
might as well. And so we're in Pycelle's laboratory, and he's wigging out because he realizes that Cersei has a new pet, and that's Qyburn. And we discover that in this scene that the blade was poisoned with manticore venom.
The cause appears to be manticore venom. It is the Death's Head manticore, and this shows you that Qyburn knows more.
Yes.
Right off the bat, he can tell you specifically which type of manticore, you know.
Yeah, and so Qyburn starts talking to Cersei about, you know, like, I can actually fix this, and Pycelle is like, this man is not even a maester. This is dangerous and unnatural, which it totally is. Like, you can't really argue with his logic there.
Yeah. His curiosity is deemed dangerous and unnatural. Rightly so, in my opinion. And you can tell I'm sick because my voice is all fucked up when I'm trying to imitate Maester, or you know.
I think it actually sounds
Pycelle.
pretty good because he sounds kind of sick too.
Yeah. It's funny.
You know, and so he's like trying to reason with Cersei, like, don't do this. This is not this is not what we should be doing.
This man is not even a maester, let alone Grand Maester.
Yes.
That's for the best. No maester knows how to save him.
Yeah.
That's exactly the sort of arrogance that had him expelled from the Citadel, Your Grace.
Yeah, because I, it's clear that he's done these types of experiments before. And so I love Cersei here. You're dismissed, Grand Maester.
But, Your Grace, this is my laboratory.
Yeah. And she's like,
not
anymore. So I loved that.
Pycelle is bitch made.
Yeah. So Pycelle leaves and he's pissed and he kind of like bumps into something and like pushes it out of the way. And Cersei asks, will it weaken him? And Qyburn's like, oh no. And I love Cersei's face here. She's like, oh my goodness. Like, what are we? Like Franken Mountain.
Yeah, you should know the process may change him somewhat.
Yeah.
Oh man,
somewhat.
So
he's like a purple beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of all I had on that scene.
Yeah, it's very creepy, interesting scene. And man, the mountain is huge. Right? Just monstrous.
Yeah. I have the next one on my notes is Dany's titles.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, why don't you talk about this one?
All right, so it starts off with Missandei giving away all the titles, and they're just getting more impressive.
It's a little excessive.
Yeah, you stand before Daenerys Stormborn, the Unburnt, Queen of Marine, Queen of the Andals and the Rhoynar and the First Men, I'm trying to do
of the Great Cross Sea, Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains.
On the radio, those voices that like give you the terms and conditions after they give you their great offer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's fucking hilarious. And I'm thinking, does Missandei read out all of the titles every time a supplicant arrives in this chamber?
I think so.
Because remember last time it was like, oh, how many more do we have to go, Missandei?
Oh my God.
Like, 172 more, Your Grace.
Yeah.
You stand before Daenerys Stormborn. You stand before Daenerys Stormborn.
Oh my God.
The unburnt.
Mother of Dragons.
Over and over. Yeah. Just over and over and over. Be so funny.
God. Yeah.
So first we get Fenez.
I love Fenez.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about him. Very sympathetic character. A poor old guy. He points out that the young are abusing the old in these places that she's set up, and she's like, I promise you, this will not be tolerated,
Yeah, she's super uncomfortable with this whole conversation.
Yeah, and he's like, but even if they're safe, like, who would I be there? What purpose would I serve? With my master, I was a teacher. I had the respect and love of his children. And she's like, what is it that you want from me? And he asks to let himself sell himself back to his master, which is like, damn, like that is what a psychological.
He must be well cared for though too, I think, because like he has the respect and love of his children. I mean, I don't think he would want to go back if his master was like beating him and not feeding him. I mean, clearly he's a loved and wanted person in that household, in that home. Yeah.
The way that slaves are like treated horribly is definitely not universal, like in this case, he seems to be more of a family member.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting development.
He mutually decided with his master that it was best if he left.
Like he had some type of conversation. He wasn't told to leave. The master gave him opportunity to discuss it with him. And I think this is a great development in Dany, realizing that not all masters, are horrible people. And
there's nuance.
Yeah, there's
gray.
difference. There's a lot of gray, for
Just
sure.
like George R. R. Martin's characters and everything, that's what they say about him. Nothing's black and white, and it applies to this concept. And
George R. R. Martin has a lot more than 50 Shades of Grey.
Kinky.
Yeah. I've never read or watched those movies, so I just...
Neither have I. I've just been compared to the protagonist by women. No, I'm kidding. So she decides, she comes up with a pretty good compromise. She allows him to sign a contract with his former master, not covering a period longer than a year. So it kind of prevents them, like the slaves who would wish to do this, from being abused for long periods, and gives them an out if something goes wrong, after a year or whatever. But Barristan does point out to her that masters will take advantage of this situation, and the men serving them will be slaves in all but name.
Yeah,
and, he's
that's
right.
true.
It's sad.
I love Finez when he says, too, those of us too old to change, there's only fear and squalor.
Right.
It's like they're just too old to... They've lived this life their really long time. I mean, he's an old man. And I think Dany did a good thing here, for sure.
Yeah. And she has a solid philosophical reason that she employs here, that she describes. She says, I did not take this city to preside over the injustice I fought to destroy. I took it to bring people freedom. But freedom means making your own choices.
Yeah.
And then, I will allow you to sign a contract. So it's important, that distinction, that freedom means making your own choices. If you want to sign away your rights, you can, and that's what waivers are for in our country.
Yeah, what I mean? Absolutely.
You waive your rights, and you legally can do that.
And I just love that, I'm backtracking here a little bit. It starts off in, is he speaking Valyrian?
I'm not sure. Not sure, actually.
Whatever language he's speaking, and then he goes, I can speak the common tongue, and she goes, you speak it quite well, and he goes, well, I taught language and history. The little girl that I taught, has learned much about your family and has a lot of admiration for you. And
she's smiling.
Yeah, and I hope I can prove worthy of her admiration. So we immediately get off the bat that he is a slave. That's true, but he's educated.
Yeah, he's
loved
he's not
by
a nobody,
these children. Yeah, he's had mutual conversation with his master about what they felt was best. And so, I mean, in Dany's mind, she knows that he's not going back to a place of abuse. He's being abused now in these mess halls, basically. And so, it's just it's another, like you've talked about, the Marine storyline is quite slow, but it is so paramount for Dany's development.
Very nuanced.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to say about Finez?
No. I just love Finez.
Nice. So, Finez rolls out, and then we get the most sympathetic character in all of Game of Thrones who shows up, and we pretty much talked about this already, but there's a few things worth mentioning. That it's just fucking heartbreaking that this is a stellar performance. Just tear jerking every time. The prose that he uses, the way that he seems so helpless, he can't even understand what she's saying.
I know, and he seems so scared, and he's sad, and he's
he's got to be terrified. Her fucking dragon just roasted his kid. How is she even going to react?
She's standing, she's sitting up on this giant stairwell, and he's this commoner, and he doesn't understand what they're talking about. Yeah, it's a very confusing situation for him. He's grieving. He's afraid.
Are you talking down about my pet?
Yeah.
Slave?
Right?
Worthless peasant? Ugh. You're his next meal.
And he's so meek. I don't understand. And, Missandei shows compassion here. She's saying, to come forward, it's okay.
It's okay. The queen says you may approach.
And then she starts translating for him. Yep. He came from the sky, the black one.
Yeah, the winged shadow. And he's so shaken up. He starts one sentence. He's like, I've brought you and he can't even like finish saying my dead girl.
Yeah, my girl, my little girl.
He came from this guy. And we had a discussion on Facebook the other day on our group, on our podcast page. People were asking, what would be Drogon's title? Like, we have Balerion the Black Dread, for instance. And I think, of course, it has to be Drogon the Winged Shadow.
Yes, I like that.
Oh, man. And this guy coins it. It's just the perfect name because he's so big that he just casts shadows over like everything.
And he's also black, and shadows are dark.
Black, yeah. The Winged Shadow. And when he says the Winged Shadow, Dany shudders.
Yeah. It's
like
horrible.
It hits her, and then he says he came from the sky, and my little girl, and Dany is freaking the fuck out. Like, she is like trembling and like spazzing,
Yeah.
And then it cuts away from that guy, and Dany's talking to Missandei. What was her name? Zala, Your Grace. How old was she? 3. And she's just like, 3.
3.
And, and still no word of Drogon. Sailors saw him flying over the black cliffs 3 days ago, my queen. Nothing since then. Meet me at the catacombs, she says, and as she walks out of this, the scene with Missandei and Barristan, which must be taking place after the supplicants at, like, later on in the day or something, she looks like she's just in a fucking daze. Like, she may have even just stopped everything, like, right after this guy left, just like, this needs to be handled immediately, but she's walking away and she's just looking dead ahead, and she just looks like she's on another planet. Like, she's not comprehending anything that's going on around her,
Yeah.
And she takes Rhaegal and Viserion into the catacombs and chains them up in some really good CG. She's dragging the chain, like the big, dragging the collars along and making them seem heavy, and lifting them up over their necks, and really, really good CG. Very impressive. Not perfect, but just about as close as you can get to where any criticism is like ridiculous to be criticizing. Like I could. Make certain things like, when she's carrying the collar through the air, you can tell that she's not actually holding it because she's just moving it too quickly. And if it was heavy and had mass, it would be moving slowly, and the directionality would change at a different rate. Those are ridiculous criticisms. This fucking CG is amazing.
Yeah, it truly is.
And you can't train an actress to fake this type of physics.
No, not at all. There's an earlier episode when they're going to Karth, and she's trying to feed Drogon sitting on her shoulder. She goes to like look up at him, and her eyes aren't like looking where they imposed Drogon on her shoulder. So funny. I mean, there's a couple little things like that here and there, but
sure,
it's not bad. I found this really symbolic, because we hear all her titles, and Breaker of Chains is one of them. Right. And here she is putting her own dragons in chains. And I go back to when she says, a dragon is not a slave.
Right.
And it's just so...
And as she's taken the collars off of all these slaves, she's now putting collars on her own children.
Yes.
Essentially enslaving them.
Breaker of her own heart in this scene, for sure.
Oh my god. And the sad dragon music is playing.
Oh, I know. I know. Epic. It's so sad.
So fucking good. And she just she starts walking out, and she can't even look back. And as she exits, you see tears streaming down her face. And then she finally looks back just for a millisecond as the door closes. And the dragons are freaking out.
Oh, their screams. Oh.
They're like, Mom, we didn't do anything. It was Drogon.
Mom! Why am I in timeout?
Lady's a good girl. She didn't hurt anyone. No. Viserion didn't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, really heart-wrenching scene again. There's so many fucking heart-wrenching moments in this episode. Fuck you, HBO. God damn.
I know. This is a solid episode, man. I mean, it was like, I know we were texting back and forth. Like, it took me like close to 3 hours to take notes on this episode.
Probably, yeah, it took me fucking 3.5, 4 hours probably taking notes total.
Yeah, because I had to, like, there's so much dialogue.
Pause, right, pause, right, pause,
yep.
right.
Pause, rewind, pause, rewind.
Yep. Just so ridiculous. There's so much happening. Yeah. Craziness.
So much. And it's a long episode, too. I didn't realize that it was longer than normal. Yeah,
with the bonus scenes and stuff on... not bonus scenes, but the behind the scenes thing at the end on HBO Go, it was like 108 or an hour and 8 minutes or something. So it's probably like an hour and 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's a little longer
episode than typical. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of all I had on Dany.
Let's take a dragon to the wall. How about that?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I guess we can't take a dragon. Let's take a donkey then. Fucking donkeys.
Fucking donkeys.
The dragons are chained up, so we'll take a.
Well, Drogon's not.
Oh yeah,
if we can find him.
Yeah, if we can find him, we'll take Drogon.
Yeah, they can't find Drogon. He just comes up and roasts little girls and then flies off into the abyss.
Remember the next time that Dany sees him, she's like standing on the terrace of the pyramid, and he's just right there, and she like reaches out to touch him, and he like looks at her and flies off. Yeah. He's monstrously huge at that point, yeah.
Monster.
Drogon's the shit.
I want a dragon.
I would be torn in between, like, wanting to have a dragon and wanting to kill all the dragons.
Yeah.
I mean?
So I used to work at this really tiny pet supply store in Oregon when I was going to college, and there was a mastiff that would come into our store, a black mastiff, and his name was Dragon.
Nice.
And he was the most legit dog. I will never forget that dog.
That's fucking cool.
And he was like kind of scary looking, like a dragon, because he was really black, and he had this, you know, the big mastiff face. He was like 200 pounds, but he was like the biggest, happiest teddy bear. So his name,
he's like Hodor.
Yeah, his name totally fit his look, but not his personality. It was so funny. He was like a cuddly dragon, like Puff the Magic.
Puff the Magic Dragon. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so Maester Aemon is reading a eulogy for the fallen Black brothers, and poor Pip and Gran.
Yeah.
Their watch has ended. You know.
A lot of their watches ended. There were a lot of bodies on that pyre.
Our brothers, we shall never see their like again. So it's sad, and we see Shireen through the flames.
Yes,
foreshadowing her demise.
I have that in my notes.
By flames. And then we also see Melisandre looking through the flames at Jon. Very wolf-like look. And I thought it was interesting. This is the first time they see each other, and she seems sort of fixated on him. But interesting, from both angles, we're looking through the flames at Melisandre, and then we're looking through the flames at Jon. So the directors are making it apparent that there's fire in between Jon and Melisandre, sort of buffering them in this case, and it symbolizes.
Melisandre likes what she sees too. I think she's totally. Like, "Oh hey,
yeah,
hey over there."
She knows like there's something, you know, and
about him.
Yeah, she's fixated. But the fire between them symbolizes how the Lord of Light connects them, and there's the God of Fire is connecting them. It's between them, you know. So I just thought it was really clever symbolism employed by the directors here, placing fire between the two.
For sure. And Jon looks kind of uncomfortable. Like, why is this woman staring at me?
Right.
Like she wants to eat me.
Yeah, I'd eat her.
Oh my God.
You've been thinking about this ginger minge, how it tastes. So then Tormund and Jon are talking, and Tormund just like doesn't understand what the fuck is going on. Your old man patched me up. Why? You're keeping me alive so you can torture me? No one's gonna torture you. So how do we die? Hanging, beheading, dropping us from the wall? He just doesn't get. Like,
yeah, and John's
on.
like, he's sworn to treat all men, friend or foe.
Right.
I don't know what happens to the prisoners.
Who decides? I suppose Stannis does. He your king now? I don't have a king. You spent too much time with us, Jon Snow. You can never be a kneeler again. And he smiles as he says that, you know. I love the relationship between Jon and Tormund. Like, they're never really enemies, ever, you know?
No, and it kind of echoes, honestly, Mance and Jon's relationship, too.
Sure. Well, Jon thinks that Tormund is Mance the first time he meets him.
Yeah, that's true. How funny.
So,
you know, we're going to burn your dead. Do you, want to say any words? Like, what?
Words?
Words.
What the fuck? Words?
Funeral words. The dead can't hear us, boy.
Yeah. And then he asks, did you love her? And he doesn't really answer. She loved you. She told you? No. All she ever talked about was killing you. That's how I know. And kind of makes Jon smile a little bit.
Yeah. Like a funny little memory of her.
Yeah, like, I knew she loved you because all she ever talked about was killing you after you left. Like, that's how you know, like, if you feel that strongly about somebody, it's only because you have, some strong feelings towards them. And so he tells him, she belongs in the north.
The real north.
Yeah.
You understand me? Like,
yep.
You need to take her out there.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. It's so sad as he's building her funeral pyre that he burns her next to the weirwood tree. And it's the same place he took his vow.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of symbolic.
Yeah, I thought so too, because, laying with her kind of broke his vows. And now he's, burning her by where he took those vows.
So it's like an affirmation to his vows, but it also is it's a symbolic, important place for him by burning her with respect in front of that tree. He's doing it in front of the old gods as witness. And, and it's almost like a vow to her that he's doing it up in the north out of respect for her and giving her proper treatment,
Yeah, and when he goes to behead her when they first meet too, she asks him, will you burn my body?
Right.
And he's like, no. And so I think it's really a really symbolic scene for him to burn her body and give her that release and respect, and also doing it in front of the weirwood tree, which we know are kind of like the eyes all over.
So that means Bran saw it.
Yep.
Basically. Yep. Since he sees everything past, present, future through the trees.
Yeah, so I just thought it was really important. And then Jon Snow cries. He's crying when he walks away from her.
Yep, he sheds a tear and his lip is trembling and
he closes his eyes. Yeah, and his nose just kind of crinkles up, and the camera cuts away, but we know he's about ready to just like have a breakdown.
Yep. Again, good directing, cutting at the perfect moment.
For sure. Ugh.
Really, really well acted, very convincing.
Yeah.
Great, perfect timing with the tears and and everything.
For sure.
The tear. Yeah. Yep. And he really does love her in real life too, so.
Yeah, I
just
had that
imagining
in my
her
notes
lying
too.
there dead was probably enough for him to have the creative energy to like
actually cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny.
Yeah. Oh,
so next
Jon.
we have Hodor and Bran, right? Oh, Jon.
Oh, Jon. I'll comfort you. Yeah, so the next notes that I have are Hodor pulling Bran, and
Summer loping along.
Yeah, and Jojen is struggling big time. He's kind of falling behind, and he falls.
Yeah, Mira's like, we can stop. We can rest. And he's like, no, we'll rest with the three-eyed raven. And I'm like, rest in peace? Because you know you're about to die before you even get to the three-eyed raven.
Yeah. And I think when he falls into the snow, he realizes that he's starting to live the vision that he had.
Oh, man.
That's how he knows that we're already here.
Yeah, Mira's like, we're not going to make it. And he's like, we're already here. And then at last, the tree. And it's just like a
so badass.
Gorgeous shot. And I'm wondering what % is digital and what % is not.
The way the leaves are flickering and the sunlight shining behind it. It's
like the crazy colors of the sky.
Yeah, it's a really awesome shot. I want that like for my computer background.
Yeah. And Summer just like knows exactly where to go.
Yeah. Summer looks amazing in this.
Summer just starts trotting off right towards the tree, leading the way.
This is where we're going.
Yep, and they're all following, and then bam, surprise, bitch! A hand reaches out, zombie flick style, and grabs Jojen by the leg.
Yeah,
like Day of the Dead or some shit. I'm trying to
understand, like, why are they buried?
They're probably laying in waiting, like booby traps, like bear traps, just waiting for Bran to show up, basically.
Oh, interesting. So do you think the Night King knows that Bran is on his way?
I think that the Whites and the Night King and the White Walkers in general know that the three-eyed raven is in there. They have him cornered there. The three-eyed raven has employed magic, so they can't get in. They've probably been there since they probably chased him into there, and have been waiting there ever since for people to come or for him to go or whatever. They're just waiting. Yeah,
and it's funny when they ran. So was it Sir Pete that talked about Dark Sister about being in the cave?
Somebody mentioned it wasn't Sir Pete. Yeah. Maybe Sir Pete the other day was talking about how Mira picked up a sword in the cave.
Yes, and it like kind of blew our minds. So when they ran into the cave, I couldn't see it, and I know that he was talking about...
It's in a different part of the cave.
Okay. It wasn't in the front.
It's when we have the fight.
That's right.
It's in the Hold the Door episode.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I was thinking it was this episode. Okay, because I was like pausing it. I was like, I don't see a sword. But that makes sense because that's right. He went into talking about that she parried a White Walker's weapon with it, and it glowed white. That's right. Okay, I was confused. Moving on.
So Jojen is being held down by this white white skeleton white. Amazing how they did this CG on these guys too. Behind the scenes, it's like guys in green suits wearing bones over the top of their clothing, essentially, and they scrub out all the green. Yeah, it's fucking amazing how they do it.
The one that pops up in front of Bran is super freaky.
Oh yeah. The one, the camera's like focused on him, and he just like rises and
starts
stands
crawling
up
him. It reminded me of what's that scary movie? Oh, I forget.
The Ring?
No, not The Ring.
Ringu
has the creepy. It's kind of like the creepy girl in The Ring. God, what is that freaking movie? The girl like crawls up under the covers of the girl's bed and then like pops her head out right in front of her face.
Oh, cool.
This is gonna drive me insane.
You'll think of it. Let me know when you do.
Yeah.
Just think about that and let me know. So Hodor is like, Jojen's trapped. Mira's freaking out. Bran's like, Hodor, help them, Hodor, and Hodor looks back at Bran like, do I have to? Come on, this looks really scary, And he's like, Hodor, go, And so he finally like goes off to try to help, and Bran decides to warg into Hodor to make the process more efficient because two whites jump on Hodor's back and they're like smashing his head with rocks and stuff.
Yeah, he's just not the type to...
Yeah, he's not a fighter,
No.
He's just like, why can't we all just get along, Hodor? I don't want to hurt you. So Bran wargs into him and smashes them all up, and whites come out of the ice and they're running towards Bran while Bran is defenseless, warged into Hodor. And right as they're about to like hit Bran. Summer ex machina comes flying through the sky like Superman or like Ghost at the Battle of Castle Black, and just 90-degree intercepts these whites and just like munches on them. And
for sure.
We have to mention that these skeletons are like the skeletons in Jason and the Argonauts movie.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, that famous old movie. So Jojen's like, Bran, save yourself, you know, and Mira cleaves one of the skeletons in two from the groin upwards with her blade. And
yeah, that was intense.
Splits in half and fucking cool. One of them, she like stabs in the head. Oh yeah, great Foley work. One of them, she like stabs through the head too, and if you hit him in the head, and it kills him also in this case, which is kind of weird considering their brains are probably gone. So as Mira is cleaving this guy upwards from the groin, the white that's lying on the ground next to Jojen, partially dismembered, pulls a blade out from a sheath on his waist, and that blade looks rusty as fuck.
Yeah.
Just saying, you know. And so she cleaves that skeleton and all of a sudden looks back, and it's just like consecutive stab wounds just
I know, and he doesn't even like make any noise or anything.
And Bran is just Jojen's just like looking at it, and it's just whack whack.
Because he knows it's coming.
Just slashing him right through the gut. So brutal, and Mira freaks out.
Yeah.
And runs over, and Jojen in another heart-wrenching moment. Fuck me. Fuck you guys, HBO. You know? She's freaking out, and he's telling her, you know, that's when the children emerge, right? Come with me, Brandon Stark. He is lost. Talking about Jojen.
Yeah.
And Mira's like,
come with me or die with him.
Yeah. Come with me or die with him. And he says to Mira, and Jojen looks up at her reassuringly, go with them, you know, and smiles at her. And she's like, oh my God, like this is the worst. And she pulls out her own blade. And it reminds me of, what is it, when Osha finishes off Maester Luwin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Under the tree.
Slits his throat.
Yeah. And yeah. Or like how the Hound offed that guy who was dying a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
That's where the heart is, you know? So she can't look while she's doing it, but she slits his throat, and there's a blood spray, and then she doesn't even look down again. She just gets up and runs, basically. And right about that time, the children tosses a fucking blue fireball, which just bursts and disintegrates Jojen.
Yeah, and we actually see the reflection of this in his eyes, and I thought that was kind of symbolic because he's
so cool.
Because he saw his hand on fire.
And we saw the reflection there, too.
Yeah, so I just thought it was, you know, tying in that he's seen his death. And
very good. I like that. Yeah, he saw it coming.
Yeah,
he's seen through his eyes as he sees the fireball coming. And oh
my God, it was The Grudge.
Oh, The Grudge. There you go. I was close with The Ring.
Yeah.
Grudge.
Oh, thank God. It just like popped into my mind. I'm like, it's The Grudge. Yes. Oh, stop. That's so freaky. I watched that with my roommate, Erin, in the dorms up at Oregon State at like 4 a.m, and we screamed so loud that the RA told us to shut up. We're like,
nice.
Sorry, we're watching The Grudge. He's like, oh, I'll watch it with you guys.
That's so funny. Yeah, that was a great movie. I like that one too.
Yeah.
So when Game of Thrones starts out, it's all politics and intrigue, and there's really not much elements of magic in the first season. You know, like they hook us early with just typical drama type stuff.
Yeah.
And then at the end of season 1, the dragons are born, and it's like all these people who are skeptical about fantasy are now already hooked, and they're like, fuck, I guess we'll just ride it out. You know, like most of them didn't think they would be interested in a fantasy series before that, you know?
Yeah.
So this is the moment where it's like full on fantasy, fucking little like ancient girls throwing blue fireballs with their hands. Like, it doesn't get much more fantasy than that. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Imagine if the show had started out like that, though.
I think...
Imagine how much smaller the audience would be.
I was going to say, I think their audience base would be a lot smaller.
Right. So they basically tricked everybody into getting involved with this story that's just like a really good drama. And now they've added in all these other elements from another genre and transformed the show, and now it's created a whole new fan base for fantasy that never even existed before. So it's brilliant in terms of like steering popular culture and the mindset of an entire, world into being more open-minded about a whole different genre of storytelling that hasn't been mainstream until now. You know what I mean?
For sure. And what's so funny is I still occasionally run into people that have not watched Game of Thrones, and I'm like, you're crazy. And one of them was my hairstylist assistant, and I've been bugging him for months, like, you got to start Game of Thrones. He's like, no, it's just not for me. My boyfriend is telling me that I should too. And I'm like, seriously, I like podcast about it. That's how good it is. And so he texted me a couple of days ago asking me how to find our podcast. And I said, so you started it? He goes, girl, I have already watched season 1.
Finally.
And he's like, I hate Joffrey. I hope his end comes soon. And I was like, only time will tell.
Yeah, don't start listening to the rewatch until you've watched the whole thing. That's what I
said. I said, you need to watch the whole series. He's like, I will probably watch it by the end of the year.
Oh, fuck yeah. That's awesome.
He loves it. Yeah. And he's like, thank you so much for staying on me about it.
We're spreading the gospel far and wide.
Yes. Yes.
Converts.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's when we get into the cave and the skeletons run in afterwards and just explode.
That was so cool.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that the first time. Really cool. So we learn that they're powerless here and that there's some type of magic, probably similar to the wall. And we get a little explanation. The first men called us the children, but we were born long before them. Come, he waits for you. And it's funny that Hodor's been like carrying Bran this whole way, and he just drops him and fucking makes him crawl the final few steps to the Three-Eyed Raven. Yeah. Maybe he just got freaked out. He was like, I don't want to go any closer, Bran. Here you go.
Yeah, probably.
You're the Three-Eyed Raven. I've been many things. Like, he used to be Blood Raven, for instance. Now he's the Three-Eyed Raven.
I also thought, because isn't there some type of theory that the Three-Eyed Raven is Brandon Stark in the future?
Yeah.
So
who knows, man?
He says, I've been many things. Now I am what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said, I've been many things, I think he's like looking into his past.
Oh, yeah, probably. My brother, he led you to us, and now he knew what would happen. From the moment he left, he knew, and he went anyway. So she's like, how do you know? I've been watching you. All of you, all your lives. With 1,000 eyes and one. And it doesn't really that line doesn't really make any fucking sense on the show because he has 2 eyes, which you can clearly see. But in the books, he has 1 eye, and there's like a root. He's like grown into the tree, and there's like a root growing out of his other eye socket.
Oh, okay.
So he sees through 1,000 eyes, meaning all the ravens and all the godswoods trees and all the other creatures and organisms that he looks to witness things happening in the world. And 1, referring to his 1 remaining eye on his body. So it's just kind of funny that they gave him 2 eyes on the show. It would have been easy enough to black 1 out and make it look like he just has 1 eye, but I don't know what the fuck they were thinking with that.
Interesting.
So that line like loses all its weight for the show.
Oh.
Unfortunately.
That's too bad.
Yeah, that's like one of the only like real criticisms I would have for the show. And it's a small one, so whatever. But and it's funny too because this guy gets totally recast in the next season and he looks totally different.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. So
sure.
You've come to me at last, Brandon Stark, though the hour is late. I didn't want anyone to die for me. He died so you could find what you have lost. You're going to help me walk again.
I know, that was so sad.
Yeah, he's just like, nope, biatch.
Not gonna happen.
You will never walk again, but you will fly, you know, and it's such a tease. I'm like, fuck. I want to know. Yeah. Like, is he going to warg into the ice dragon or something? I mean, obviously he'll be warging into ravens and flying like that, but I think there's greater implications.
I was just going to say, I think the immediate thought is that, you know, he's going to warg into ravens, but that there's a greater symbology with that statement from him. Yeah. He's going to warg into something that's more than a raven.
Definitely. So next is Brienne. We covered that.
That's it for my notes.
Yeah, I think that's probably it for mine too. Yep, that's it for mine too. All right, kick ass. So we finally made it through that whole episode.
Yeah.
Oh, and what a good one it was.
It was amazing.
Yeah, really.
Such a good episode.
Setting the bar high.
Even down to the music. I mean, like,
right.
Oh, man. It's great.
Definitely. So let's take a little break. Hang out, guys, because we'll be right back. And we're back with news about Game of Thrones. From BGR.com, George R.R. Martin has an idea for yet another Game of Thrones spin-off series by Andy Meek. And personally, me speaking, I think this is a really fucking cool idea. Very artsy.
Okay.
Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin apparently just can't let go of Westeros and its myriad inhabitants. Not only is he hard at work on the next book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, but we're also getting the final season of HBO's TV series early next year, followed by a Martin-helmed prequel at some point after that. We already know that prequel will be set in the distant past relative to the timeline we're familiar with, but Martin also has an idea for yet another related show. In a new interview, the epic fantasy author let slip that he actually has an idea for another spin-off series he'd like to pursue, though he hasn't exactly convinced HBO to back this one yet. The focus of the interview with Martin, New York Times published Friday, is his new sci-fi show based on his 1984 work Night Flyers. However, the 70-year-old writer also let slip his idea for a new Game of Thrones series, inspired by the famous Tom Stoppard play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which follows two minor characters from Shakespeare's Hamlet. I wanted to do a show called Spear Carriers. So fucking cool.
Oh, nice.
Which would actually be set during the events of Game of Thrones, but it wouldn't be following Dany, Tyrion, and Jaime, Martin says. They would all be there in the background, like Hamlet. And it would be more like, here's a story about a guy in the city watch. Here's a story about a prostitute at one of Littlefinger's brothels. Here's a story about a mummer who's in town to do juggling and tricks, and they all get caught up in the events. I think that kind of show would be a lot of fun to do. Maybe I'll be able to convince them to do it. The folks...
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that a really cool idea?
I love that idea.
Like, you just see Jon Snow from behind, like, fighting at the Battle of the Bastards while, like, we're focusing on two different characters who are, like, small folk or something involved in the fight.
Sure. Yeah, I like that a lot.
So they wouldn't even need to bring in the big actors to do those roles either, because you could be like out of focus from behind and we're like, that's Jon Snow, you know, like we recognize him, but they never have to show his face type thing. The folks at Vice quickly chimed in with a subsequent piece noting that one of the best things about the fantasy series is its breathtaking depth, and they mention how one of arguably the best scenes in the show is the encounter between Arya, the Hound, and a dying peasant in season 3. Imagine spinning a whole episode up about that layman, or say about Ray the Septon before he met the Hound. The possibilities are endless and fascinating. So yeah, I thought that was a really cool idea.
Very cool. I like that idea.
It is #Duncan approved.
Nice. From livescience.com, Hodor deep sea worms get Game of Thrones names by Mindy Weisberger, senior writer. Marine worms that dwell in the numbing cold of the deep ocean don't care if winter is coming. Be that as it may, several newly described species of these worms now owe their names to Game of Thrones. Inspired by the remorseless Arya Stark, Abyssaria Akis, and everyone's favorite man of few words, Hodor, and Hodor and Durrell.
So 2 species of worms called Hodor and Hodor and Durrell.
That's awesome.
So weird. Yeah.
The deep sea worms are a part of a family called Polyonide, which includes about 900 species. These newfound creatures were collected during an expedition to the equatorial Pacific Ocean at depths between 13,000 and 16,000 feet, 4,000 and 5,000 meters.
Super deep.
That's really deep.
Yeah.
Scientists reported in a new study, deep-dwelling worms such as these are not as well suited as their cousins who live in shallower habitats. But the newfound samples, scientists substantially expanded the group's family tree, describing 17 newfound species and 4 newfound genuses, according to study co-author Paulo Bonifacio, a research with the Department of Deep Sea Ecosystems at the French Research Institute of Exploration of the Sea. For the genus Abyssaria, the study authors borrowed from the Latin word abyssus, which means bottomless, and the name Arya, one of Bonifacio's favorite Game of Thrones characters. Hodor measures about 0.4 inches, 11 millimeters, long and about 0.08 inches, 2 millimeters wide, with 24 body segments and 9 pairs of limb-like structures. Ooh, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, I tried to paste the picture in here, but it wouldn't stick. So I'm going to post the article when the episode goes live.
Abyssaria Akis is significantly smaller, about 0.2 inches, 5 millimeters long, and 0.02 inches, 0.4 millimeters wide. With 18 body segments, both worm specimens were pale from the preserving ethanol, so it is unclear what color the species are in life, the researchers reported.
From Bustle, Game of Thrones, Kit Harington burst into tears after he filmed his last scene ever, by Emily Dixon. For Game of Thrones fans, Season 8 still seems an eternity away. It's actually airing in 4 months, but please allow me to be dramatic. But for its cast and crew, the show's all but wrapped up, and the farewells were as difficult as you'd expect. Game of Thrones' Kit Harington burst into tears after filming his final scene for the show, as Digital Spy reports. Speaking to BBC Breakfast, the actor explained that while he was glad to let the show go, saying goodbye remained an acutely emotional experience. It's a weird thing. I'm not sad about it ending. I feel very joyous about it ending and having completed it, Harington said. It doesn't make it any less emotional. It's not hard to understand why emotions were running quite so high. While the series made its TV debut in 2011, filming started way back in 2009, meaning the Game of Thrones team were bidding farewell to an almost decade-long commitment. Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows this, but they pretty much reshot the entire pilot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they filmed it, and George R.R. Martin had made a cameo in it, and they had different actors playing a bunch of different parts. And then it was just too, comic booky and cartoony and, fantasy. So they reshot it to make it more, sober and grounded. And, yeah, pretty interesting. Totally different, directorial style. After, the first one was screened, they were like, I don't know if it's going to work. We got to redo some stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So they refilmed the whole episode basically, and there were certain things that weren't people after watching it didn't realize that Jaime and Cersei were brother and sister type thing. So they added some sort of exposition to make certain plot elements more clear.
Yeah,
and
like
everything
specific.
Like that.
I believe that he actually calls her outright his sister in the pilot.
Yeah, like
when they're looking over John Aaron's body.
Yeah, first time we see them. Yeah, literally. Yeah, they make it quite clear.
Interesting.
Earlier this month, Harrington told Entertainment Weekly that he also got choked up during the 2-day table read for season 8 after choosing not to read the scripts in advance. I like this. I walked in saying, "Don't tell me, I don't want to know," he told the magazine. "What's the point of reading it to myself in my own head when I can listen to people do it and find out with my friends?" I like that sentiment, find out live. The result, 2 instances of tears, the first of which Harrington didn't detail for fear of disclosing spoilers. The second time was at the very end. He said, "Every season you read the end of the last script, end of season 1 or end of season 2, the actor explained. This read end of Game of Thrones."
Oh my goodness.
And you realize, okay, it's really happening. During his BBC breakfast interview, Harrington also revealed that the Game of Thrones pilot was a disaster. Though he hasn't seen it himself. "I had no idea if it was going to be a big or a success or anything," he said. "They blackmail me every now and again, threatening that they'll release bits on YouTube because apparently it was terrible and I had this awful wig." Yeah, the pilot that they originally shot, he's talking about.
Got it, yeah.
So funny. So yeah, good thing we just talked about that, because otherwise that would have been kind of confusing. Still, the actor had some sage words about the whole affair. Sometimes with things that end up being huge successes, they start with huge failures. Would someone like to put that on a motivational poster?
Nice.
Moving on to Game of Thrones and history from emgn.com. 12 historical events that inspired Game of Thrones and proved our world is just as brutal as Westeros.
Author of Game of Thrones series, George R.R. Martin, once claimed that no matter how much I make up, there's stuff in history that's just as bad or worse, which is a bit of a scary thought. The series has been greatly influenced by moments in history, and here are a few of the most notable similarities between the world of Westeros and the real world.
1. Westeros and England and Ireland. This is a cool one.
Yeah, for sure.
Basically, if you take a look at the map of Westeros, it very closely resembles England with an upside-down Ireland beneath it. Like, there's a side-by-side here, and the two are very similar. Like, Hadrian's Wall is right where the wall is. For instance, the neck would be right in between where the south of England would connect to Ireland, or to Iceland. Ireland. The fingers on the east side of the Riverlands line up with what looks like fingers sticking off of the southwest of Ireland, which when you invert it becomes the northeast of Westeros, just like in the map.
We need to post this on the Facebook page because this is really cool.
Oh yeah, definitely going to post that. We'll post this on Facebook. You guys need to check it out. It's pretty amazing.
All right. Number 4, Daenerys Targaryen and Henry Tudor. Henry Tudor was an exiled nobleman who spent most of his life across a narrow sea in France. Here, he would strengthen his power and plan his invasion of Britain, though nobody around him believed it would happen. This is all probably very familiar to you, as it's pretty much the story of Daenerys. Tudor fought for the Lancasters and eventually ended up on the British throne at the conclusion of the War of the Roses. We're not yet sure if that's a spoiler or not.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
5. Theon Greyjoy and George Plantagenet. George Plantagenet entered the Wars of the Roses on the side of House York alongside his brother Edward IV. However, eventually he changed suit and began fighting for House Lancaster. Down the line, he attempted to jump back with the Yorks and was found guilty of treason. This is all very much similar to the story of Theon Greyjoy, while Robb Stark's story seems to resonate with Edward IV.
Number 6, Joffrey Baratheon and Edward of Westminster. I feel like I've read this before. It's hard to believe that some of these sadistic sick souls can actually be modeled after real people, especially Joffrey Baratheon. Edward of Westminster was a psychopath who inspired Joffrey. A Milanese ambassador once said of Edward, the son of King Henry VI, this boy though only 13 years of age, already talks of nothing but cutting off heads or making war. Sound familiar? Edward was captured at the Battle of Tewkesbury when he was 17, slapped in the face with Edward the Fourth's metal gauntlet.
Imp slap.
And eventually cut down by the swords of his enemies.
Brutal. You hear that?
What was that?
Lady Lisa of House Sky, Pyromancer. Fate is a big theme in this episode. Tywin did everything he did for his legacy, but was so blind the whole time that his greatest fears were only realized right before he died. Spoiler alert, later we see how Cersei follows this same path. Cersei and Tywin are similar in the fact that they both caused the fate they were trying to avoid. What could this mean for her endgame? Hands of gold are always cold. Tyrion had been asking the same question his whole life. What is my destiny and purpose as a Lannister? He was constantly battling that idea. And now he has his answer. His purpose for his house is over. Or is it? Dun dun dun. Dun, dun. I could watch Brienne and Arya together for 100 hours. Can't wait to see their dance later.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We want to give Lady Lisa a huge mega shout out because she has been critical to the return of this show. She's helped work behind the scenes to create our awesome website, gameofmicrophones.com. Lady Lisa is also a world-class artist. No joke. She's pretty freaking amazing. So go to gameofmicrophones.com, check it out, and go to Amazon and check out Lady Lisa's children's book, beautifully illustrated, called The People You May See. Thanks so much for all your help, Lady Lisa.
So next we have Lady Sarah of House Larkham. We see Qyburn doing his experience on the mountain, Cersei threatening Tywin by exposing her and Jaime's secret, and the whole family dynasty is a lie, like a letter that Stannis sends in Season 2, Episode 1. With Tyrion killing Tywin, he really screws up his family more than it is already. This foreshadows the High Sparrows coming into power. In Season 7, Episode 7, Cersei mentions to Tyrion, by killing two, he made the Lannisters look weak and let them be picked apart by vultures. Example, the High Sparrow and House Martell. Jon burning Ygritte was a beautiful scene. It also foreshadows Jon stabbing in Season 5 finale by showing the favorable stance he shows the wildlings and how most of the Night's Watch don't like him. There are two actors that play the three-eyed raven. The one that we see in this episode is played by Storan Roger. The three-eyed raven that we see in Season 6 is played by Max von Sydow.
Yeah, Max von Sydow does a great job too. Sir Matthew of House Repp. The Children was such an epic end to Season 4, and with such a perfect title too. We are introduced to the Children of the Forest as Bran finally reaches his destiny at the Heart Tree. Tywin's children completely rebel, with Cersei blackmailing him with the truth of her and Jaime's relationship, and Tyrion shooting him while he was on the privy. Dany realizes her children might be more than she can handle when Drogon kills a child, and is now missing her, and she decides to entomb her remaining dragons beneath the pyramid. Stannis saves the day. The Menace. How could an army that size invade the north of the wall without Mance's scouts or wargs knowing about it? Good question, bro.
Yes, very good question.
When Tyrion finally kills Tywin, I know he is grieving for Shay, but even deeper than that, I think he is finally releasing all that pent-up anger about what he did to his first wife, Tysha. When Tyrion told that story back in Season 1, Bronn even said he'd kill the man that did that to him. Yeah. Good call. For sure. Good call.
A traveler of the middling roads, citizen of Macumber's Eye.
This is exciting. We haven't heard from the traveler in a while.
In a recent podcast, Lady Rachel, that's me, was wondering about what Jon Snow had to offer the agent from the Iron Bank of Braavos, as the Night's Watch produced nothing of value other than the security of the realm, running a prison-type camp to protect the kingdom from snarks? The answer is lumber. Oh. Those tall trees from the east area of the gift are vertical gold mines to anyone from Bravos, where almost no trees exist and prices are very high on any price of wood. Oh, interesting.
Any piece of wood.
Any piece of wood. With a suppressed slave market and blood sport fighting pits closed, money is being lost. Futures in ships and shipbuilding are looking up, but it's lumber intensive enterprise. That's such lumber. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. Angelica Garcia Decker, regarding the moment the mountain crushes a viper's head. My brother is a huge Game of Thrones fan and routinely calls my kids screaming whelps. I've heard the audiobooks a dozen times and missed this part every time since I often fall asleep to them. But now it makes sense. Secondarily, this is brutal as fuck. And this is in response to the poster I had with the book quote of the section of Oberyn's head being crushed.
Oh, yeah.
Where the mountain calls Elia's kids screaming whelps.
That's right. Yep. From Derek Pacheco, what a highlight moment for both book and show. It'll never leave my memory.
And he was also referring to this this post about the mountain and the viper.
Yeah.
Hello, Sir Duncan. Hoping I can get this in on time for the episode The Children, the season finale of season 4. Really excited to be moving on to season 5. So much cool stuff yet to happen. I did have a few notes on this, and I'm kind of bummed. I had notes on the other episodes too, but I'm totally slacking. But one thing I wanted to mention is the Field of the Dead. I noticed, and every time I watch this episode, and I watch Jon Snow walk out of that tunnel in the opening shot, and there's all those dead bodies lying around. I'm like, oh God, they're gonna jump up and start chasing him or something. And of course nothing happens because they haven't been animated by the White Walkers, but it's still really eerie to see all these corpses lying around, and you kind of expect something to happen. And I'm sure they did that deliberately. It's also really clever, the lighting on that shot. Everything looks very white and wintry, and this time of year we're seeing it more and more here in New England. You get that very white sky, and you can feel the pressure changing. You can feel it's sort of loaded with snow, and the storm is coming. And as we know, this in this scene, the storm is going to be Stannis Baratheon and his Stormlanders army. But I just love the feeling of that scene. It feels very heavy, even though the whole scene is white. You can feel there's something coming. It must be the music or something, but it feels very ominous, like something's about to happen. And then we get it at the end, the Field of the Dead, with Bran and Jojen and Mira and Hodor as they're arriving at the tree. They have that field just in front of the tree, and I thought that was an interesting choice with the show, because the books don't have that really. It sort of happens on a hillside in the books, in a forest, and in the show it was probably more impactful to have it in more of an open space where you can see everyone running around and you can see the whites coming for people. And I thought that was really cool. I don't know if they meant to link that with Jon's scene from earlier, but with all the dead bodies popping out of the snow and coming for them, it had the same eerie feeling. You know it's coming, whether you've watched the show before or whether you've read the books. You know immediately what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen to Jojen. Jojen knows what's going to happen to Jojen, but it just made it really, really, really impactful. It was cool. And another thing I wanted to mention is we will never see their like again. We see a lot of people burned in this episode, and I was sort of ticking off every time we see somebody burned. I'm like, yep, we're not going to see them again. So we have Gren and Pip with the Night's Watch funeral, and then we have Jon burning Ygritte, which was very very memorable and touching scene. And then we have Jojen finally burning up. And I'm just going through, I'm like, yeah, they're all done. We're not going to see them again. And finally, I wanted to mention Mance. I love the character of Mance, especially in the books. He's very, and so many people have all these theories about who Mance could be, like he's secretly somebody else. Because, of course, any Night's Watch person, they could have a history, and they've had that scratched off. So he could have a history before he joined the Night's Watch, and we don't know what that is. And so it's all a mystery. It's very cool to theorize, but I do love Sirenicide, but I think he's a little too serious for the character of Mance Rayder. I love the Mance from the books because he's so warm and welcoming, and he's like got such a jovial, happy personality, and he's just everybody's buddy, and that's why all these people want to fight for him, because he's a very lovable, charismatic person. And although Sirenicide is like, he does have a sort of likability about him. You can tell that Jon is drawn to him and he trusts him, and he's very he's got a good way of arguing his point. As soon as he sits in his tent and he has Jon have a drink, and it seems all very happy-go-lucky, and then he realizes that Jon's there to kill him, and he's like, is that really what the Night's Watch is all about? And you realize at that point, you forget about the old gods and the rules about sitting down and accepting someone's meat and mead. And it's not really against guest right, because Jon is the guest, but he's still in sitting down with him and having a drink with him and agreeing to sort of deliver peace in a way. There's definitely something there that is going against the rules of the old gods, and that would be definitely very unchivalrous, and going against the sort of honor that Ned Stark stands for. And so that's really, it goes against Jon Snow's temperament to do that. And you can tell once Mance says that, it's all over. Jon's like, oh, now I can't kill him. So I don't know what would have happened if Stannis wouldn't have showed up, but Jon gets lucky a bunch of times here. He really, I feel like somebody comes to his rescue every time. He turns up in trouble. Anyway, so that's all I have for today. All the best, and looking forward to season 5. Thanks.
Hello, Duncan and Rachel. It's Zach again with feedback for The Children. This was a pretty good episode. Not my favorite, but pretty good. Not all that exciting as far as season finales go. Episode 9s are usually the best, and then episode 10s are usually pretty good. But this one was just kind of not quite as thrilling, but it was a good plot development. My first note was Dany. If you notice early in the episode, she has on that necklace that looks like it has teeth on either side. I've always thought of it as I call it the dragon tooth necklace. But later in the episode, right before she's going to lock up the dragons, when she's in her council chambers, the necklace is off and she's holding it in her, I believe it's her right hand. So I thought that was kind of symbolic that she's taken that necklace off just as she's about to lock up the two smaller dragons. Pretty interesting that the first time Melisandre sees Jon is through the haze and the heat of the funeral pyre at Castle Black after the battle. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time that Melisandre, servant of the Lord of Light and always looking into the flames, she sees Jon through the flames. Next is Tywin's disbelief of Cersei's incest confession. I'm kind of torn about whether Tywin believed this or knew about it or not, because a couple episodes ago when Jaime's talking to Tywin, trying to bargain for Tyrion's life, Tywin tells Jaime that he will have children named Lannister. So that sort of points towards the fact that Tywin knows that Jaime has had children, Tommen, Myrcella, and Joffrey, but of course their names are Baratheon, not Lannister. But this scene between Cersei and Tywin, he is still acts like he doesn't believe it, can't believe it, won't believe it, that all the stories about Jaime and Cersei are true. So I don't know. I don't really know what to think about where Tywin was at mentally about Jaime and Cersei. The best part of this episode to me was the awesome battle / skirmish at what I call the Great Weirwood Tree, where the three-eyed raven lives. When I remember the first time I saw this is like the first big battle, the first real little battle north of the Wall. Obviously, it's nothing compared to Hardhome, but the first time we really see, I think, whites in action. Just not even zombie looking; they're just like straight up skeletons with knives and swords coming after them. So that was really intense, really freaky, even for a seasoned Walking Dead fan who's used to the gore and craziness of the dead coming to life and coming after you. I was really shocked by the whites and the skeletons coming after Bran and Hodor and the group. But my favorite part, I think, of that whole thing, well, a couple of my favorite parts were the fireballs that the Children of the Forest were launching. Those are pretty epic. And how the whites just completely disintegrate as they run into the entrance of that cave. It's pretty cool how the magic works. And I forget exactly the line. I'm sure y'all talk about it in the podcast. But basically the Child of the Forest says the power of the magic that brings them to life has no power under the tree there. So that was pretty incredible. Of course, I love seeing Arya sail off to Braavos. One of the more low-key endings to the seasons. A lot of them are with Dany and her dragons, or the Misa ending, or the wall coming down, or other really epic Dany sailing for Westeros. There's a lot of really epic ending scenes to each season, but this one was good, but not quite as profound or powerful. But anyway, really enjoyed it, and talk to y'all next time. Keep it up. Great work.
Thanks for all the great feedback, everybody.
We also just wanted to give a shout out to Lady Caroline Collins. It is her birthday today. So happy birthday, Lady Caroline. Hope you had a wonderful day.
Yes, indeed. A happy birthday to you, Lady Caroline, and I hope you had a great day.
And I also want to give a major shout out to Sir Johnny of House Stower. He was kind enough to gift both Duncan and myself a copy of Fire and Blood. So thank you so much. I'm truly enjoying it, and you were so awesome to do that for the both of us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. That was really, really cool of you. And if you guys want to check it out, Johnny, he does custom paint jobs on cars and bikes up in California. Outlawed Paint, OUTLAWD, Outlawed. Badass stuff. I've posted some videos of his work before.
That bike was awesome.
Yeah, really, really, really talented. Good stuff. All right, that's our show, episode 82. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much.
Next episode, we'll be covering Season 5, Episode 1, The Wars to Come. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on the air. And guys, Christmas is coming. So to do your holiday shopping, go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases. If you'd like to support Game of Microphones, you can always go to paypal.me/GOMpodcast and patreon.com/GOMpodcast to donate an amount of your choosing. There are links to both of those at gameofmicrophones.com. Any little bit helps, and this way you can secure the continued existence of Game of Microphones and help ensure that we're around and still able to release podcasts. We'd also like to give a huge shout out and thank you to our first Patreon supporters. That includes Sir Matthew of House Repp, Luke, the Low Duke, Lady Lucy of House Roberts, Sir Jeff of House Allen, Lady Candace of House Tews, Sirenicide, and Lord Zach of House Bruce.
That's so awesome that people are donating.
We love you guys and appreciate your patronage. Thank you.
Yes, you guys are awesome.
And we're working on some more interesting incentives for supporting the show, so if you guys have any cool ideas that would make you more interested in supporting us on Patreon, let us know, and if we can make it happen, we will. If you'd like to call, you can always call us at 813-JOFFREY. That's 813-563-3739.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOMpodcast. And give us a like and a review while you're there. And strangely, we're no longer appearing in the search results for Game of Thrones on iTunes, so giving us reviews on iTunes would help a lot and probably help bump us back into the search results. So we'd really appreciate that if you guys could do that for us.
Yeah. Slap. You can also listen to Game of Microphones on YouTube, BitChute, and Steemit. Just search for Game of Microphones to find our channel. We can't create a custom URL on YouTube until we have 100 subscribers, so please subscribe as well. Likes, comments, and shares are also appreciated.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GOM Podcast.
And we're also on Tumblr at Game of Microphones.
All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
I loved her.
Who?
Shay.
Oh, Tyrion. Put down the crossbow.
I murdered her. My own hands.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
She was a whore.
Say that word again.
Whore. Clickety-click.
Clickety-clack.
Rhaegal's
a good dragon.
I almost stopped watching Game of Thrones after that episode.
The Night's Watch finds out that Jon finds out that, fuck, I can't talk. Mance tells Jon that he sent all these men up on the wall, and I'm like, oh shit, it's Stannis, the Manus.
Yes.
The Manus.
It was awesome.
And that one guy charges up like he's gonna hit Stannis. And then just whack! The horse comes out of nowhere. Fuck water. I'd skin you alive for wine.
Yes.
That's how far I was willing to go when I thought someone awful had come to take my son away.
Yes.
Now someone awful is coming to take him away. You, Dad!
Yeah.
He learns the truth about Jaime and Cersei. He gets fucking killed. Yeah. All within one episode, man.
He had a bad day. And they're fermenting what looks to me like fermented milk.
Oh, sidebar. I got a match on Tinder earlier today.
Oh, you did?
with someone named Shay.
No, you can't do it.
And on her profile it said must blah 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 must like dogs, Game of Thrones. So I was thinking about just sending her a message, Shay the funny whore.
Oh my God.
You just see how she reacts to that.
Do it. She'd probably love it. If she likes Game of Thrones, she'll laugh.
Oh man, that'd be funny.
I would laugh.
Tywin just trying to conk Tyrion. He just needs to know why.
I think he's trying to figure it out. Like, why? I've gone to the Game of Thrones live concert experience twice with my husband.
Fuck you.
This man is not even a maester, let alone Grand Maester.
The winged shadow. You're his next meal.
Oh, God.
Mom! Bam! Surprise, bitch! He's just like, oh, like, why can't we all just get along? Oh, no. You know?
However, not all of the species were named for figures in pop culture. Some drew their names from the scientists' colleagues and friends, and one memorable creature... Oh, God.
Macellophaeloides. Macellocephaloides.
Macellocephaloides. Mustachio. We'll just go with that.
Amazing.